to set you free, but I really want to let you be. And a part of me wished I could set myself aside, just let you take the ride, just chalk the rest up to destiny. I could let you believe that the only restraints in life are the size of your dreams. Let you believe each kid grows up with the world at their feet. When I know too well it's open season, I know they're taking stock and raising stocks and raising stock. And I'm simply not here to sit and watch as you learn the lesson all cogs are taught. Keep your head down and keep to task and just keep on blocking the rest of it all out. Just keep on with the rest of the herd of a million adjacent oblivious workers. The forest unseen for the trees, and the trees unseen for the fallout. No, what's more damning, baby, the truth or the ignorance? Fuck it, I honestly wonder if I see the answer so well. Baby, believe me, well, I know it's scary, I scare myself. If I could find a way out of my head, I would run like hell. I would ditch this body politic, mindless occupant somewhere far from the dismal abyss. In the tranquil crystalline bliss of the beach, I could rest with the rest of the shells. And if anyone asks, I'm anywhere else. If I'm really needed, just light the candle, then read the book, and then ring the bell. Oh, my untarnished heart, my little perfect soul. This world will melt your mercy down so they can sell its gold. This world will take your worth and then demand 1,000-fold. It's full of greedy pigs who'll eat you out of house and home. They'll strip your bank account and sweep you somewhere down the road, and then return to eat your tent and shitty bike you rode. Your bottled water, only shoes and coat and broken phone. Then smiling in your face, they'll tell you that the shelter's closed.
An extreme way of thinking.
Hoped you would never find out, knew that you had to know. Pulling what's left of my mind out, trying to tell you so. I tried to block the light out, knew you could feel its glow. I've been here holding my hands out, trying to keep you close, trying to keep you close.
Oh, my untarnished heart, my little perfect soul. This world will melt your mercy down so they can sell its gold. This world will take your worth, then demand 1,000-fold. I tried to block the light just so I could keep you close. Mother and baby on razor's edge. Don't give a shit what your paper said. Economy creeping up out of red. They divvy a shit little bit of bread. Miles away from that lady's ledge. Her senator waking safe and fed. Ain't got a paper to read in bed. Jerking them off as they count the dead. Gorillas in the mist, skin suits in the Senate. Water in the streets, chest deep like it's Venice. Water out a tap in Jackson comes blacker than resin. Black incidentally like most of its residents, which is why it isn't on your television, isn't on the lips of your president. Well, I'm admitting that as evidence. I've been fleshing out a case to be made for the testament. I don't know what our collateral count is, but doubt it is less than the estimate. You just show us a hospital, watch as we Dresden it. Our propaganda gets taken to heart, and you're starving. I would urge you to pick that apart, cause you're drinking it, smoking it, driving it, dressed in it. We pay for it, pray to it, bathe in it, fill up the basin, and babies are blessed in it. Ask no questions, bask in the pestilence. See, honey, when the plague goes live, you'd be wise to invest in it. See, behind me when the plague goes live. Just between you and I, that's an industry sign that they're all done testing it. And come 2025, they will all be confessing it. And then a few small fry fall guys all fly from the precipice, who were doomed to be wasted like shell corporations, dissolving to vapor, then gone with the resonance, gone with the sense and the sentiments, gone with the dust of the remnants, gone with the ghosts of the regiment, gone like those families in Gaza whose bodies and homes are demolished when Israel sets up a settlement. Gone like your chance at a settlement. Gone like the hope of apologies out of those funding our deadliest research and backroom development. Gone like your shot at a measly I'm sorry from the mouths of our own bioterrorists. God, you cannot imagine the face of the monster. You can't even fathom the scale of its carapace. It's under your feet, yet you're barely aware of it. You see it's quietly judging the scope of your suffering, sizing you up like a therapist. Then it rides in your guts like a parasite, growing in size and excreting a culture that's purely embarrassment. Equal parts Manson and Maryland, equal parts something we push into madness and something we'll gladly exploit and objectify 50 years after it perishes. Carefully crafted and planned and arranged like a monarchy's marriages. Fucking cousins or otherwise, scourge of the colonized, staged and displayed for the sake of retaining those imperial barracks. And all to expedite a special type of anglicized dysplasia. The kind where half the world is waking up to learn they're being raided, raped, and robbed of all their heritage by Charles and his caravan of 30 servants' carriages. The kind where each in the procession is worth infinitely less, till eventually they're paid in sums of crown-approved disparagement and bonuses of shame, till they're finally told to thank the highest-ranking inbred pig named king of every garrison. One who rose into his power all immaculate, like Harris did. Well, now that garishness is melting down like paraffin that hardens in a shell and shelters terrified and threatened royal terrapin. Those that rule with zero question, although nobody elected it. Democracy was here till we dissected it. Democracy was here until the exhibition exodus. And the loss of that democracy is just a threat for those who've yet to recognize the scent of bait or know the taste of desiccants. Democracy was here and now the smear is all that's left of it.
Democracy was here and now the smear is all that's left of it.
Mother and baby on razor's edge, don't give a shit what your paper said. Economy creeping up out of red, cause they divvy a shitty little bit of bread. And miles away from that lady's ledge, her senator waking, he's safe and fed. And aide got a paper to read in bed, jerking him off as they count the dead. Mother and baby on razor's edge, don't give a shit what your paper said. Economy creeping up out of red, as they divvy a shitty little bit of bread. And miles away from that lady's ledge, her senator waking, he's safe and fed. Aide got a paper to read in bed, jerking him off as they count the dead. Mother and baby on razor's edge, they don't give a shit what your paper said. Economy creeping up out of red, as they divvy a shitty little bit of bread. And miles away from that lady's ledge, her senator waking, he's safe and fed. Aide got a paper to read in bed, jerking him off as they count the dead. Mother and baby on razor's edge, don't give a shit what your paper said. The economy creeping up out of red, as they divvy a shitty little bit of bread. And miles away from that lady's ledge, her senator waking, he's safe in bed. And aide got a paper to read in bed, jerking him off as they count the dead. Mother and baby on razor's edge, they don't give a shit what your paper said. The economy creeping up out of red, as they divvy a shitty little bit of bread. And miles away from that lady's ledge, her senator waking, he's safe in bed. And aide got a paper to read in bed, jerking him off as they count the dead.
Just an off-the-cuff chat between you and me. Us. We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Who are these people? It's us. We're these people.
I love that intro. I love that intro so much.
I'm here with a different co-host this time, Oz LaFave.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me on.
Friend of the show, DJ Joe Nice. How are you, friend?
What's good? And you hear Nick say this all the time. The United States is the most propagandized country in the world.
We are so fucked, you guys. Again, I'm sorry for being cynical, but seriously,
No.
we're fucked. We are
Right.
fucked. We are well and truly fucking fucked.
Just appreciate all the work that you do and the platforms that you all are providing.
Hey, doing good. How are you guys doing?
And as independent media, we have a responsibility to be, we don't hide our bias, obviously, but we must stay true to the facts.
What's up, Pam?
Cheers and salutations. Smoke 'em if you got them.
But I am here with a man that I've been waiting to talk to for the last couple of years, Nico House.
As an educator, what I would suggest is that, first of all, podcasts like these are made.
So you need to be an example for the people and for the future, knowing that your words can actually change the future.
What do you feel? What would Kwame Ture feel we would have to do?
Well, politics is every day of every minute. You have to be aware of what's going on. Not voting on one day, so the vote has never meant anything. So I'm not a Democrat.
See, I would call that guy the Black Obama.
No. The issues that we talk about, listen to us.
As always, kids, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
INN News.
Yay, we did it. And we're here, we did it. Why it did not working? No. My button's not workies. I'm not good. I had to fix that, I guess. Anyway, it's Wednesday. It's me, Reef. I'm here as always with my co-host, Collin Radix-Carter, aka Care Bear. Care Bear, how are you? You doing okay?
Living the dream, I guess.
Yeah.
Or something. I get the PowerPoint up on my other, there we go, other window. I would say it hasn't been boring in the news world, to say in the least.
Right.
So I think we should just get right into it because I'm guessing our last two segments are probably going to be lengthy. So I would guess, right?
Give or take.
I'm sure, but yeah, let's kind of talk about what's going on tonight. Hi, everybody. Glad you're here. Well, everyone is coming in. So to start, kind of an old story, but Reef brought this for me because, per usual, I always have trouble trying to find stories, at least as of late. So, not to say it's a throwaway, but I think it might be good. I think this might be a good bookmark story to kind of talk about in light of the upcoming administration that will be possibly next month. So we're going to talk about Trump's dream team. I know Patel
it's featured in that.
Potentially going to head up the FBI, and that was a big thing that people talked about last week. But I think from this story we can talk about the other people that Trump is nominating into his cabinet, and
there's
how
problems with cash too that I'm sure Kid will get to.
Yeah. So shout out to Kid Klarenburg for shout out to Kid Klarenburg for writing this article that I'll read. But as I said, I think it'll be a good thing to kind of note within the next month or so, when this new administration comes in. And then later on tonight, obviously, we had to talk about, well, we didn't have to, but I think this was one of the big stories that has been developing and continuing to be developing, like even today. I had pulled some more information within the last hour before coming on live. But obviously, and I have to be careful with my words as far as saying alleged. and we're in a country that presumes innocence. First, so alleged United Health CEO killer Luigi Mangione was found in Pennsylvania eating at a McDonald's, who is allegedly connected to the murder of the CEO, United Health CEO. So the way we're going to do it, obviously, given the reality is being an independent media, and I think shout out to Indie and Reef for kind of training me into thinking this way. Not everything is as what it seems in mainstream media. Like the way they're going to present something to you may not always be what is reality. You guys know that, but you know, so I will present this story hopefully with some nuance in terms of what the media wants you to know. And then we're gonna dial it back and let you know what we're really thinking. But even in the midst of all of that, and I'll say this later, and even now, just thinking about this, I do not want people to get caught up in the hype that is Luigi or like the shooting and all of the things. Like, concentrate on the issue. And if anything from this story, regardless of how it goes and how it develops over the next few months, the situation should be and should continue to be about the way our healthcare system is run in this country, how fucked up it is, how corrupt it is, and do not tie the issue onto a person. We did that with Bernie in 2016 and in 2020. And Bernie became the issue rather than letting the issue stand for itself. So hopefully I will present it in a way that kind of brings us back to that versus being hyperbolic in terms of the idea of Luigi being a vigilante in terms of our US healthcare system. We'll have a lot more to say about that later. But I want to kind of not warn you guys, but I kind of want to present it in those ways just so we believe in nuance on this show. But I also kind of want to show or kind of at least start discussing the reality of this isn't what this might seem to be. And that and all can be the distraction that I think we should be aware of. So, but we'll get more into that later.
Yeah.
And what did you bring, Reef?
Well, I brought a story I haven't seen anyone talk about. Israel is stealing children's art. For some reason. So we'll get into that story and figure out what's going on there. And we kind of have to. Damascus has fallen. We're gonna have to talk about it. So I don't want to there's a lot of speculation going around, and there's a lot of factors happening there. It's one of the most complicated geopolitical areas in the region, let alone that region already being complicated geopolitically. So, a lot of factors to look through, but we're going to do some digging, and we'll have more over the next coming weeks, I'm sure. But I definitely want to be careful with that story and try not to get stuff wrong. But yeah, we'll get into that at the end of the show. So before we do that, just want to make sure to remind people that you can donate, help keep the lights on here. We're demonetized on YouTube, so the only way we get any monetary, anything is from viewers like you. So scan that QR code on your screen. Go to ko-fi.com/indienewsnetwork, or as always, links are in the description below. If you're in our live chat, you can put !donate, and it goes right there. It's how you give us super chats. It's very easy. But yeah, we appreciate that. Look at all these people. They've already figured it out. Look at all of them. Your name might be up here. We probably got to add some more names soon, but, appreciate you if you've helped us out. You can also go to CashApp, $Indie News Network, if that's easier for you. PayPal, Patreon, Ko-fi, all those are there. Links are always in the description. So, appreciate you. All right, you ready for our first one?
Yeah.
Cool. There's no the thingies.
I didn't put a... Oh, I didn't put
weird.
It? Oh, okay. Oh, well.
That's fine.
So, that'll be a huge deal. Not a huge deal. So yeah, as I said earlier, this is a story that kind of gained traction a little bit last week in terms of Trump's nomination, for Kash Patel to head up the FBI. So that got a little bit of noise. But I do think it's important to kind of talk about the others that are connected to Trump's potential candidate. Now, granted, keep in mind all of these are nominations. They may not end up getting these nominations come January, but it's a good idea to kind of figure out where a lot of their ideology is at. And honestly, I think it's just good to kind of be aware of the fuck shit that we are going to go through, especially given what's happening in the Middle East right now and has been happening, and how this upcoming administration will probably make it worse depending on who is actually in there. And I think shout out to Kit Klarenburg for actually kind of summarizing all of that and then kind of talking a little bit more about the ideology of many of the people that Trump have nominated. So let's get into it. So he writes, Trump's pro-Israel dream team.
Before we get into it, I just wanted to kind of remind people, a lot of people, especially our libertarian friends and right-wing friends, kind of look past a lot of this stuff because they're hopeful, and want to have change that they think will work. I just want you to know they're elected officials. They are meant to pander to you. So, try to look past the initial first layer, which we're going to do with this article. So, just keep your eyes open and not buy into the bullshit, please and thank you. Anyway, continue.
So Kit writes, Trump's pro-Israel dream team, Patel nomination caps Hawkish cabinet. Actually, can you close some of your screens?
Yes.
Please?
How about this? Would you like that?
There we go.
That's nice, isn't it?
Okay. So Kit writes, catch up. On November 30th, Donald Trump nominated Kash Patel to serve as FBI director. A staunch MAGA activist and loyalist with significant standing in Trump's orbit, Patel aligns closely with the president-elect on both domestic and foreign policy matters. Indeed, he appears to struggle to pinpoint areas of disagreement with Trump's agenda. So basically, he's a simp. Patel has consistently advocated for a hardline approach to China and is an unabashed supporter of Israeli interests, often prioritizing them over U.S. considerations. On October 7th, marking the first anniversary of the Hamas attack, Patel delivered a fiery interview on Fox News. During the segment, he felt that the incoming Trump administration would intensify its crackdown on anti-Israeli elements. We should be side by side with Israel. Where we are back in power with President Trump, we will shut off the machinery that feeds money into Iran. We need America to wake up and prioritize Israel, and that is not what Kamala Harris is about. We need to bring home Americans and end this war, bring home Israelis, assuming they're alive at this point, and stand by our number one ally in Israel, and people need to wake up on November 5th.
Okay.
A relative political outsider who has never occupied high office, the media has been awash with profiles of Patel and fevered speculation about what his management of the Bureau could mean in practice ever since. In the process, he has been subject to a level of mainstream scrutiny and criticism that was entirely lacking over recent weeks, as Trump filled his cabinet with a rogues gallery of dedicated hawks, hardcore pro-Israeli elements, and characters both unknown and notorious with potential extremist ties and views. For some, the composition of Trump's cabinet is a crushing disappointment. On November 9th, Trump caused shockwaves when he announced neither Nikki Haley nor Mike Pompeo would be invited to join his administration in any capacity. The news, coupled with comments he made in a late October appearance on Joe Rogan's popular podcast, perked optimism in some quarters that the president-elect's longstanding anti-war posturing could produce real-world results in Ukraine, if not as elsewhere. In his discussion with Rogan, Trump professed that the biggest mistake of his first term was he picked a few people that I shouldn't have picked, neocons or bad people or disloyal people, among them John Bolton, period. Haley was the U.S. ambassador to UN under Trump and perhaps the most ardent, outspoken Zionist ever to fill the role. She, Bolton, and Pompeo, who personally orchestrated Iranian General Wassem Soleimani's assassination, among other hostile deeds, were widely regarded as the administration's leading hawks. Yet, any slight hope that the pair's absence from Trump's new White House might herald an influx of some doves, and in turn, a more peaceful shift from the U.S. government, was comprehensively dashed when the president's transition team nominations began rolling in. Now the cabinet is fully stocked. Countless millions around the world have urgent and grave concerns about what the future could hold for them, their families, countries, regions, and more. In particular, Trump's prospective government can already claim the mantle of the most fervently pro-Israel in U.S. I'm not sure if that can even be true, but whatever. This is despite replacing an administration that has done more than any before to accelerate, encourage, and facilitate Israel's war on Gaza. The prospect that Tel Aviv's deadly assaults on Gaza and Lebanon, and probably now Syria, will escalate somehow further is now not only very real, but seemingly inevitable. However, as we shall see, there are minor rays of hope among the mass doom and gloom. So, I mean, I appreciate Kit's optimism.
Yeah,
but given who he's going to mention, I can't necessarily agree, though I understand why. He will get to that later. But anyway, let's talk about some of these figureheads, shall we?
Yep.
New Secretary of State Marco Rubio hardly needs any introduction as one of the most pro-war members of the modern U.S. political class. Since his career kicked off in 2000, he has been consistently among the loudest voices on how America officially designated enemy states that should be dealt with, be that China, Iran, Venezuela, or otherwise. Threats of sanctions, coups, and military intervention are almost a daily staple of his political oratory. A close friend of Bibi, in 2019, Rubio co-sponsored a Senate resolution condemning U.S. Security Council resolutions designating Jewish settlements expansion in occupied Palestine as a violation of international law. He has referred to Israel's mass murder in Gaza since October 7th as legitimate self-defense, claimed Hamas is 100% to blame for any civilian casualties inflicted by the horrific onslaught, and honestly declared Palestinian resistance must be eradicated, as Tel Aviv cannot coexist with these savages.
So weak.
The media has reported that the Trump administration is already concocting plans to bankrupt Iran with maximum pressure upon taking office. Rubio, who has long called for tightening already crippling sanctions on Tehran, is reportedly at the forefront of this effort alongside nominated National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, a Pentagon journeyman who has recently sat on the House Armed Services Committee. At an event convened by NATO adjunct the Atlantic Council in October, Waltz bragged, "Just 4 years ago, Iran's currency was tanking. They were truly on the back foot. We need to get back to that posture." Neutralizing Iran has long been touted as a prerequisite for reclaiming Israel's waning dominance in West Asia. Any measure that destabilizes Tehran economically, militarily, or politically diminishes its capacity to curb Israel's actions, leaving Tel Aviv emboldened to act without restraint. So, in other words, the Greater Israel Plan that Netanyahu has mentioned he has wanted to do forever.
Mm-hmm.
The logic is stark. Weakening Iran strengthens Israel. With the Trump administration, with its hawkish alignment, policies serving this end will likely be met with uncritical endorsement. Already, Trump has pledged to lift the new remaining restrictions and end delays in the supply of military equipment and ammunition to Israel immediately after his inauguration. This includes an embargo of certain weapons shipments and limitations on various combat-related equipment. This embargo reportedly impacts Israel's warfighting capabilities as its forces struggle with multiple self-initiated active battlefronts requiring strict control over ammunition supply and use. I mean, it's really hard to believe that Trump is going to add more when I feel like the Democrats under Biden have been fairly lax too, in terms of that. So, I don't know. It just almost feels surreal that, oh no, like.
New boss, same as the old boss.
Right.
No difference.
It just kind of seems, right. It's just more, to me, just an extension without that difference. To me.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like politics is just all kayfabe and the real masters decide what we want anyway. So,
the pro-Israel credentials of Senator Marco Rubio and Representative Michael Waltz are unquestionable. Yet their fervor for supporting Israel's controversial policies pales in comparison to some of President-elect Donald Trump's other nominees. Take Mike Huckabee, the ultra-conservative former Arkansas governor and twice-failed presidential candidate, now tapped to serve as U.S. ambassador to Israel.
Huckabee,
an ordained Southern Baptist pastor, wasted no time declaring his intention. Yeah. You should put that on the soundboard.
Pasta. Sure.
He vowed to publicly refer to Israel in biblical terms, calling it the Promised Land, and proclaimed that Jews hold a rightful deed to Palestinian territory. Under what grounds, sir?
Jesus is the bread.
Not even. Like, that doesn't relate to the Jews?
It relates to their thoughts about it. Anyway.
Yes. Despite its unwavering consensus on Israel, Trump's cabinet has been labeled eclectic by the mainstream press, and not without cause. Alongside establishment stalwarts like Huckabee and Rubio, Trump has tapped figures long considered political outsiders. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a polarizing figure in his own right, has been nominated for a senior post.
Nothing bad ever happens to the Kennedys!
Pete Hegseth, a Fox News host and U.S. military veteran, has also emerged from the fringes to claim a role in Trump's cabinet. Hegseth, who quietly advised Trump during his first term, pushed for the pardons of American soldiers convicted of heinous war crimes, a campaign that, in some cases, was effective.
I'm starting to see a pattern.
Hegseth, a contender for defense secretary, has made his allegiances to Israel unmistakably clear. He has described Israel's settler population as God's chosen people. He has openly advocated for transforming Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque into a Jewish-only recreation of the historic Temple Mount, framing such an act as a miracle. At a 2018 National Council of Young Israel Gala in New York City, Hegseth left no room for ambiguity. Zionism and Americanism are the front lines of Western civilization. I would argue colonization and all these nations, not that, have freedom in our world today.
Wow! Incredible!
Such disturbing comments have elicited little media interest since Hegseth's nomination. Gee, I wonder why. However, NPR has chronicled his unsettling array of tattoos, including a Jerusalem cross, a Christian emblem with origins in the Crusades, and the land phrase Deus Vult, I checked.
Vault.
I think it means. Yeah, I think it means go with God. I think
Deus
is God.
Yep.
I did check this, but I think it does mean go with God, if I remember correctly. Often interpreted as a call to reclaim the Holy Land through the slaughter of Muslims. Both symbols have been co-opted by neo-Nazi groups.
Of course they have.
Perhaps predictably, Hesev's 2020 book, American Crusade, brims with incendiary Islamophobic rhetoric.
Of course.
Another wildcard nomination is Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence. So currently a politician and serving U.S. military officer, for years she occupied a doubted space on the Democratic left, all along smeared as an Assad or Putin apologist for our anti-war positions.
I would argue those are questionable, which he's about to do.
However, she acrimoniously quit the party in October 2022, slamming it as under the complete control of an elitist cabal of warmongers who are driven by cowardly wokeness and for reportedly stoking anti-white racism. Gabbard had, by that point, been distancing herself from previous held progressive stances on issues such as abortion and LGBTQ rights, and she has rapidly grown ever more conservative since formally joining the Republican Party. Despite her long-standing criticism of U.S. military interventionism, Gabbard effusively supports Israel, opposing any limits on its assaults on Gaza and Lebanon. She has slandered protesters critical of Israel as puppets of a radical Islamic organization, accusing them of supporting Hamas.
And her connection to Modi, not great when we see what Modi's willing to do with Israel as well. There's some fucking bullshit there. I mean, again, these are all people that have pandered directly to entire groups, but when it comes to what the fucking powerful actually want, they seem to be in lockstep. Funny how that fucking works. Anyway, continue.
Yeah. Despite her inflammatory rhetoric and overt support for Israel's most belligerent policies, Gabbard's nomination as Director of National Intelligence could be a silver lining in Trump's cabinet. The position wields immense power, coordinating the works of America's sprawling intelligence apparatus across 18 agencies. Since the announcement, deep anxiety has rippled through intelligence circles on both sides of the Atlantic, with veterans voicing fears about the potential consequences of her leadership. Trump spent much of his first term at war with the U.S. intelligence community. The president and his supporters quite legitimately accused the CIA, FBI, et al. Of seeking to undermine and sabotage his first term in office. On November 24th, The Economist forecast, based on interviews with U.S. and European intelligence officials, a likely mass exodus from American spying agencies, as many operatives are fearing at failing foul of Trump and Gabbard, under whom spies are on notice. Gabbard's disdain for American spy agency Alphabet Soup was writ large in her April book, For Love of Country. She blamed the CIA, FBI, and a whole network of rogue intelligence and law enforcement agents working at the highest levels of the U.S. government, in conjunction with the Democratic National Committee, propaganda media, and big tech, for America's most egregious ills. She declared this shadowy nexus so dangerous that even our elected officials are afraid to cross them. Gabbard reserved some of her sharpest criticism of the intelligence community's role in fueling the Ukraine proxy war, accusing it of laying the groundwork for conflict to benefit defense contractors. But yet you don't see the same thing with Israel, though. How would their friends in the military-industrial complex make trillions of dollars from the fear they fomented in America and Europe by stoking the fires of the new Cold War? She wrote. American spies, it seems, are taking her seriously. We are all reeling, a current intelligence official.
No, they're not.
Administrations told Time magazine following the announcement of a nomination.
Yeah, that's them saying, we're shaking in our boots. They're like fucking with you. They're not afraid. They're getting everything they want. How could they be upset?
Per the Daily Telegraph, the intelligence community in London is likewise alarmed by Gabbard's nomination. The doggedly pro-Ukraine outlet quoted a number of British defense figures which slammed the move in the harshest possible terms. Disgraced former MI6 chief Richard Dearlove attacked the maverick appointment, lambasting her lack of experience of intelligence and security. Elsewhere, former British Army tank commander Hamish de Breton Gordon angst that the special relationship between Britain and the US could be impacted. The perspectives of Dearlove and de Breton Gordon are striking, for both having long histories of exploiting the special relationship to further London's ends and bounty US intelligence and military establishment InfoWar. MI6 Dearlove was responsible for cooking up false intelligence that formed the basis of the formal British and US case for invading Iraq. The consequence Chilcot inquiry was completely damning of his activities in this regard. Its report noted that Dearlove personally informed Prime Minister Tony Blair that Baghdad could definitely strike Britain with chemical and biological weapons within 45 minutes, and this information had been provided to MI6 by an Iraqi with phenomenal access to the highest levels of Saddam Hussein's government. That false claim was central to London's justification for war, and much repeated in the media at the time. In reality, British spies were furnished with the claim indirectly by a taxi driver. More recently, Dearlove was a central figure in Russiagate and a prominent advocate for the credibility of former MI6 operative Christopher Steele and his Trump-Russia dossier in the media, despite the document's self-evident falsity and concerns about his veracity within British and U.S. intelligence circles. Russiagate was clearly intended to ensure relations between Washington and Moscow didn't improve under Trump, and were it not for the belligerent stance resultantly taken by this administration, the Ukraine proxy war could well have been avoided. Hamish de Breton Gordon also played a personal role in pushing for a U.S. war in Syria. He was part of an MI6 operation that smuggled oil samples out of Syria, reportedly to prove the Syrian government's responsibility for chemical weapons attacks. These samples were later revealed to be falsified. A senior Western source acknowledged in August 2013 that the true aim of British intelligence was to pressure Washington into the direct boots-on-the-ground military intervention, a la Iraq.
Yep.
And we're seeing...
Now look what happened.
Now looks what's happening. See? While that catastrophe outcome was avoided at least then, a supposed government chemical weapons attack in Dogma in April 2018 succeeded in pushing Trump to launch missile strikes against Syria. Leaked documents and independent investigations have since revealed that this incident was staged by British intelligence operatives and their assets. Notably, Gabbard publicly criticized Trump's response, questioning whether Dogma was a stage ruse by the opposition to prolong the conflict at a time when the White House appeared ready to de-escalate. With Gabbard in the role of DNI, the sway of intelligence agencies over political decisions and the readiness of figures like Rubio, Trump, and Waltz to act on dubious intelligence could be blunted. While this may not provide immediate solace to the Palestinians, who remain under constant threat of death and displacement, it could signal a positive shift in the unchecked influence of British and U.S. intelligence on the White House.
Bullshit. Sorry, Kit.
Care to explain?
She's looked the other way whenever it's convenient for her. I don't get why controlled opposition fucking exists. This is the lady who endorsed Joseph Biden, okay? She plays the game. I don't see why there's any difference in what she's willing to do. It's the same thing when they think Kennedy's gonna fucking do. Let alone, these people might not even make it through the fucking hearings. Right. What is it? 47 Nobel laureates said RFK shouldn't be there. Fucking 8 strongly worded letters to keep Gabbard out. I swear it's all so they could fucking sell I'm anti-establishment book sales. Did we not learn with Bernie? Politicians lie to you while they smile and wave. People forgot what fucking old politicians act like. scary. Anyway, sorry. You know, I know kids trying to have some hope here, but it ain't there, dog. So
these tentative grounds for optimism are somewhat reinforced by Patel's nomination as FBI director.
No, it's not.
As a committed Israel firster, he comfortably aligns with the rest of Trump's prospective cabinet, and one might expect that mainstream news outlets eager to advance a pro-Israel agenda would embrace him as a result. Yet the media's response has been anything but supportive. The New York Times warns that Patel would bring bravado and baggage to the role, while the Washington Post branded him as a dangerous and unqualified choice to lead the bureau. No.
Yeah, I'm not buying it.
I mean, no, I just feel like they're only going after him because he's a Republican. Well, he's siding with Trump. That's it. Like,
yeah, normally they'd be
this much with anyone else on the Democrats.
I mean, the only thing I've seen about,
for example, we're not necessarily the media is not calling out people like Richie Torres or John Fetterman, who are like the biggest Israeli Sims on the Democratic Party there is. So, granted, they don't have these higher positions.
No, it's just the fact that he said some stuff they don't like occasionally, but he still plays ball. He wouldn't be there if he didn't. No one gets to these positions without being compromised. I'm sorry. Like, it just doesn't happen. And like, same with Bhattacharya too. No offense. I'm sure some people like him because he put out a particular fucking, declaration, but he wasn't the only one. Like, and has had plenty of problems, and all of them seemingly are more than okay with a little greater Israel shit. So, like, I don't even like this looking for hopeful in whatever, like, so, yeah, there's some, I think people are like, again, they're looking for hope, and it's like, it's not there, and they're like, they're taking any crumb that they can get at this point. So,
right.
And willing to ignore a lot. Not that that's what Kit's doing. I know that's who he's speaking to,
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, continue.
The Atlantic, run by longtime pro-Israel activist Jeffrey Goldberg, has intensified the scrutiny of Patel, publishing multiple hit pieces in recent weeks. A November 30th op-ed warned that senior FBI officials would likely resign rather than serve under Patel, which would potentially suit Trump just fine. The Trump article concluded, if Trump's goal is to break the FBI and undermine its missions, Kash Patel is the perfect nominee. This may well be one of the administration's core objectives, on top of galvanizing Israel. That I can agree with.
Yeah.
Patel has vowed that a future Trump administration would come after government officials, intelligence agency leaders, journalists, and other establishment figures he associates with what he describes as the Russiagate hoax. It's hardly surprising that these same factions view his rise and the broader ascent of a new administration with trepidation.
Yeah, and I also don't think that that's his goal. They say that that's what they're going to do, but I don't think that. Like, there's been no inclination to me if they'll actually try to take down the deep state, because he was already in office. He could have done a lot of that crap when he was there. He didn't. If anything, he made them stronger. And I guarantee you, with all the talks of digital IDs and all that stuff, that's what will be more than likely. You got to look at all that, who's connected to these people, how much Peter Thiel has paid for people to be here. He's all for all that crap. How many PayPal Mafia members are in this? We got Sachs. We got Peter Thiel's people all over the place. Right? Like, we got to go a couple of layers deeper on this to see through that. So, but anyway,
like Gabbard, Patel's combative disdain for the U.S. deep state offers little solace. His stance does not mitigate, let alone counteract, his pro-Israel leanings or the Trump administration's aggressive resolve to ensure that Israel's actions in Gaza, which human rights groups characterize as a genocide, proceed to that grim conclusion. Yet, one might argue that the left could find itself in a stronger position to oppose the ongoing atrocities in Gaza under a Republican administration that makes no pretense of sympathy for the Palestinians. Unlike democratic governments, which weaponize progressive rhetoric to attempt to shame solidarity activists and progressive dissents into supporting its doggedly pro-Israel actions, the Trump administration's overtly pro-Israel stance strips away such falsifications.
Pause.
And the possibility...
That sentence, where it's like, unlike democratic governments, which weaponize progressive rhetoric to attempt to shame... It's the same thing in reverse. We're using conservative rhetoric to, like, that's what we're doing. Right. Like, yeah, right. Anti-government, anti-whatever, anti-deep state. We're going to push that in. But really, it's same story as always. You know? So, that's what I'm seeing. I don't know about anybody else. But, anyway, not to interrupt too much.
Well, this is the last part.
Okay.
And the possibility that entrenched institutions like the CIA and FBI, longstanding adversaries of progress and justice in America, might finally face accountability for their actions could be a potential silver lining. Watch this space. I mean...
It's not happening, dog. Sorry to say.
No. I think... And look, we love Kit here. And that, again, I do appreciate the optimism, but, and I'm saying, and I mean, Kit looking from, because Kit is based in the UK.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to say it's easier to be optimistic when you're not necessarily in the hornet's nest as I am and we are. And I get the hopefulness. I just, and I mean, I've said this on this show. Yes, I think people are going to be more activated.
And I think Klarenburg knows.
But I think, again, that's just going to be more like, it's just the fad. Like, people hate Trump that much that, well, I would argue that maybe the real people will be doing it anyway. Like, there's a lot of so-called online activists who basically said, I'm out because you didn't vote for my girl, Kamala. So you guys are on your own. So we'll see. But I think just the regular schmegular people will probably come out to protest a lot more, given what Trump is going to do. But it's not going, I don't think it's going to necessarily amount to any change in policy at all. Especially given that,
if you're looking for saviors,
Republican,
in politics,
I might agree.
You're going to be disappointed.
I might agree if, like, it was a split Congress, but it's not.
It's not.
No. So they're just going to go all in, and they're just going to be as crazy as possible, knowing that they can get away with shit. And we're gonna suffer, the consequence of that. So, that's not to say there could be some wrenches. That is a possibility. I just don't think it's likely.
No, if anything,
because especially given Israel, like, they're gonna scream louder, like, oh, like, as I say, we might hear the word genocide from the mainstream media. But it's not like they're going to push back any in terms of what BB is planning to do. They're just going to be like, oh, look at what they're just going to blame BB and not necessarily focus at least on that issue.
On BB.
But how Trump is being complicit in that. They might, but it's not like they're going to stand in part of the resistance against Trump in light of Israel's actions.
No.
So I don't know. At least on that.
No,
maybe we'll get lucky.
I think if anything,
issues, but
you'll get thrown a crumb that, like, can't actually make it through anything, especially with Congress the way it is, right? Like, you know, you'll have someone like a Tulsi or an RFK or a whatever. I doubt they'll make it as far as into the actual administration, right? One or two maybe. But more than likely they're gonna get like, you know, someone's gonna tell Trump to get his mind right. You know, like Congress is not gonna allow those people through. You know, Senate, sorry. And then all these people look like are like, you know, martyrs for the cause. Well, Trump tried to, but they didn't let, you know, like it allows them to appear as outsiders regardless. And if they get in, they throw a couple of bones here or there that don't actually make it through and don't really matter much. You know, they let some information out everyone kind of already knows, you know, and that's that. And they go about their day. And meanwhile, they'll give everything they want to Israel. They'll give everything they want to the military-industrial complex. You know? So they're going to cut funding to actual things that help people and keep all the funding that goes to, you know, the deep state, the CIA, the federal police, the, you know, like justice system as a whole. They'll stack the courts. You know? Like it's going to be standard stuff. So, and more authoritarian, same as the last authoritarians. So, good luck with that. You know, they're going to try to push digital IDs at the border. Like, I'm not buying it. Those are things for you to try to be like, well, it's not all bad. No, it's all bad. Oops, all war criminals. You know, oops, all Warhawks. So, and these are people that have actively shown that they're willing to capitulate to whoever, you know, whoever they need to capitulate to. Already flip-flopped 3 or 4 or 5 times. So, you know, and when you look a couple of layers deep into the connections they got, it don't look good. So, surface level, yeah, maybe, all right. But it ain't. So good luck with that. I'm going to be here just like I was for the last administration going, it's full of shit.
Yeah.
So, but some people are paying attention. Some people are getting it. You know, they're figuring it out. Well, anyway.
As I said, I think we'll see. We'll definitely kind of follow up because I'm sure, you know, like, January, February, we're going to hear more information about this. So this will definitely keep you guys updated. And Kit, if you're out there, we'll love to talk to you about this. I mean, again, no disrespect, but I am just kind of curious as to the optimism that you have on this. So we would love to talk to you about this if you are interested. So, but yeah, again, that being said, I do appreciate Kit giving a very
I think he's looking deeper, which means he's already like, you know, getting some cold feet on that, which is why he's like, it might be good, but a lot of bad stuff. It's like, I get it. He's trying to talk to the people who are like, yeah, it's good, but it's not.
And it might not be, now granted, you know, we read from New Press. It might not be for us, this article. It might be...
Yeah, that's what I meant.
For like the regular schmegular people who are not looking into this as deep. Probably deeply. Even you. Like, you look into this more deeply than me. Yep. So I think... So if you're trying to do it... I'm not sure, though, if trying to bring a positive end is actually going to be the right thing to do in this. I think it's just like, here's the reality of the situation. We're fucked.
Yes.
So, you know, like... But here's what we should be doing. I think I just kind of wish that, now granted, Kit is not an activist. He's a journalist. So I'm not going to necessarily expect him to kind of talk about it in this way. But ideally what we should be talking about is the things that we should be doing to counter this on the ground. You know, so he doesn't go into that here. And I don't expect him to. But those are the conversations that we need to be having moving forward but not just for this administration. This is basically for any administration that is put in place. Because Democrats are going to do the same shit. Granted, they're going to be a little bit more clean about it, but they're still going to hold the same views, especially regarding Israel.
Yeah.
So, but stories like these are why we are demonetized. So the only way that we're able to get any funding or any, push from YouTube is for viewers like you, and we appreciate you guys. So if you want to support us financially in whatever capacity you are able to muster, we understand it's the holiday season. Bills need to be paid on top of presents for your families, and probably just a lot of extra money being spent towards food or whatever. And it's winter at least in the northern US for me, so you're probably paying more for your bills, heating, all that stuff. Please make sure you take care of your families, yourselves, and your communities first. But if you have a couple extra dollars that you want to give to us, we will appreciate it. And it helps, as we've said earlier, keeps the lights on here and helps us grow our content here. The way you can do that, scan the QR code that you see on your screen right now, or go to the link that you see at the bottom of your screen right there. If you are in the YouTube chat, you can type in !donate, and you can give money directly from that link that pops up. And as always, thank you guys. We love you. Please like, share, and subscribe our content. Since you guys essentially are the algorithm, we can't trust the AI of YouTube's algorithm to push it. So please do all those things and make sure to leave a comment. We do read them. We do appreciate, and you guys actually have been active in the comments. So thank you. Keep that up. And help us get to 3K. We're getting there slowly. Hopefully we'll be able to hit that by the spring, if not earlier. And thanks for watching.
Yeah.
We love you.
Cool. All right. Do the chats. Let me check Rumble. Lone Star Viz over on the Rumble. Thumbs up for these people. Who do you mean these people? Huh? Who do you mean? Who do you mean? What do you got over on the YouTube?
Not on this story, but I think we have some things on which I expected on the upcoming story that I'm going to do later.
Yeah.
Driving me mazy. My back hurts and I'm starting to feel injustice from the healthcare system. Sean Miller says, any new information, I guess, on Luigi? I don't look it up because it screws with my algorithm.
Hey, look at that. Look at somebody trying to control their algorithm. Look at you. You're listening.
So Sean, yes, there is more information that I was able to catch just before we went on. We'll talk more about that later.
Yeah. Natalie Williams says, Reef reading my mind. Sorry if I'm in there. Don't mean to be. Just like I am just not, I'm not buying it, like people talking about Bhattacharya being a Hindutva. They're pretty pro-Israeli, so Hinduviato, I forget how you pronounce that. So Hinduftas, one of those. But it's like those connections between India and Israel, pretty much. So, a lot of shenanigans there that we've talked about. India's not all sunshine and rainbows. Funny how that works. So right. I know the BRICS countries would like to believe that they're all good and proper, but there's some things amiss. But anyway, you ready for our next one?
Yeah.
Cool.
Before we do that, friends, and I'm sure you probably got a lot to say regarding Luigi. We expect that, but please say something about the other stories.
That too. They're getting there.
You're getting there, but just a friendly reminder, like, this is how we engage with you guys. We want to...
I was just telling you to stay on topic, you fucking animals. Anyway.
That being said, we appreciate you guys checking in on each other. We love it. But
yep.
We also want to engage and read your comments too. So please listen or at least watch so that we are able, and we might read your thing. So please do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, I'm ready for the next story.
All right. Cool. So, this is a story I haven't seen a lot of people talk about. It popped up in my feeds.
No one talked about this.
No. So I think it's indicative of a lot of the problems in the area, but Israel is stealing children's art. So you're probably wondering why that might be. Let's get into it. So this is by Cara Mariana. Got a little Substack over there, but sheer post picked this up. So this is, the Blue Gate IOF armored vehicles raid Ida camp, stolen art by anonymous child. So you're wondering where our thumbnail came from. But she writes, in Ramallah on the 6th of December, she met Saeed in Aida refugee camp in the first week in November when he gave me a tour of the crowded community in which he grew up. A young man, still in his 20s, Saeed works at one of the several cultural centers located in Ida camp. He holds a degree in psychology from the University of Bethlehem, where he is a part-time lecturer in Arabic. Ida is the smallest of the refugee camps in the West Bank. It is densely populated, and its narrow streets are crowded with buildings huddled together like people seeking shelter from a storm. Surrounded on two sides by the apartheid wall, Ida is also the most frequently raided camp. Down a narrow street near the entrance to the camp, a large blue gate is set into the concrete wall. It is from this gate that the IOF launches its raids into the camp. Further along the same street, a watchtower and a gun turret stand guard over the camp. From there, snipers frequently shoot into the streets and apartment buildings below. After the tour, I spent an hour in Saeed's office. Among the many things we discussed was the art therapy program the center runs for children. As we talked, he pulled out a stack of drawings that the children had done, all of them prior to the 7th of October of last year. Ones like these, of the IOF soldiers stealing a boy's bike, stolen art by anonymous child. So, I don't know what the age groups of these children are, but, you work with kids probably near that age.
My guess, looking at probably between 8 to 10.
Yeah.
That would be my guess.
Probably varying ages, sure. But I find art, especially Palestinian art, I think it speaks a lot more than a lot of the words that have been put out have, Yeah. So, but each child is drawn and colored a cinch of large storyboards depicting a difficult experience and showing how it was eventually resolved with the help of others, a teacher, a therapist, family, friends. The storyboards were bound into simple books with twine. Saeed pulled out 3 or 4 of these from the stack and talked me through the drawings. They were remarkable for their emotional impact. Many of them were equally remarkable for their artistry. These drawings were fresh and powerful, objects of art worthy of a gallery display. So I thought at the time, and still do. This afternoon, wrapping up my work on this sojourn in the West Bank, I texted Saeed, "Hi, how are you?" His response arrived 2 hours later. "Hi, alhamdulillah, doing good." I smiled when I read his reply. I knew the word alhamdulillah well and have been written about it previously, frequently used among Muslims and Christians in the West Bank. It is an Arabic phrase giving thanks to God for all that is good and all that is difficult in a person's life. Any good news in the West Bank is always to be celebrated. And then his next message arrived with a photograph. My heart fell when I saw the military uniforms. The IOF invaded the center, he texted. They stole the art of the kids that I showed you. So here's the IOF stealing the art of children, So I'm not sure why, but we have video. So there's no sound to it.
I'm curious as to why.
Sure. So here they are. They're taking, shirts with the Palestinian flag on them. This is obviously a little statue of Palestine. You know, so, I mean, they're just taking anything that could be, I guess, considered pro-Palestinian, most likely.
I would argue, here's the thing. As I said, I have a couple of theories of this. I don't think it's possible that these iOS soldiers aren't looking into this that deep. Like,
Yeah.
they're just conversating random shit to them. But that's one theory. The other theory that I believe is a little more heinous is the idea of, not necessarily hate, but to them, that, look, I work with young children. Like, and as you said, pictures often carry a lot more, say a lot more than words ever can.
Yeah.
So it's one thing for an adult, and we've reported on this, of adults saying, you know, like what the travesty that's going on in Gaza and the West Bank right now. It's another thing for a child to tell you that.
Right.
And so, God forbid if these pictures ever came out, and mainstream media isn't going to show this, but could you imagine the response of having these pictures kind of reveal the carnage of what Israelis are doing to people living in the West Bank? Like, you can make the argument like, oh, Hamas, whatever,
Yeah.
with an adult. You can't do that with a child.
No.
So it doesn't hold. It's a way of preserving their appearance somewhat in terms of destroying anything that would incriminate them of genocide. That's the, if they're thinking of it that way. The final theory I have is we don't know. These books are representative of healing for these children. Again, I don't think the IOF thinks of it this deep, but to take one of the few things that these children, and I'm guessing for these books, like, this is through therapy. So this is the idea of drawing through your feelings, drawing through the hate and the sadness and the despair that you would be feeling, but having joy in trying to figure out, like, there's a way I can resolve this issue, and having that as record, as a story of your strength and your resilience. This kind of represents taking the very thing that you've been working towards that will break that resilience. This is a way of committing these children to more despair.
Yeah.
Because it's the very thing that they've been working on in terms of healing and acceptance and resolve for them.
Yeah.
That they no longer have. So it's disgusting.
For sure.
And, you know, as a teacher, the idea that you would take away a child's work and probably destroy it, I would guess. Like, and again, I don't think the iOS soldiers are thinking of it this way. They probably don't, you know, but
I mean, they
it's
had to
still the
know at
idea
some
of,
degree, like, you
well,
know.
maybe. I don't think they realize it's therapy. Like, this is not just pictures of drawing the bad guys. This
They
is the
might.
idea of, like, right,
Like,
true, but I don't care about what they think. I care
Yes.
more about what the kids think.
Right.
That's the issue. And it's the idea, like, these bad guys took away my family, my home, my way of life, and they're taking the very thing that gives me some hope.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, see, I mean,
that's
they're
what it symbolizes.
for sure. I mean, we've also talked about how you know, they seek to control children in Palestine far more than, I mean, there's only really children in Palestine at this point.
Right.
You know,
because we've talked about this since last year. It's the idea of breaking the idea of any future leader that would lead a revolution against the Israelis.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Right. So it's like they do not want that possibility of having, and I'm going to use a biblical term, having a Jesus-like figure.
Yeah.
Among the Palestinians too.
right there, right there in Jerusalem. Yep.
So.
Well, back to this article just to finish up. She writes, during my first visit to the West Bank, this kind of news would leave me in tears. Now I'm nearly cried out. Many perfectly lovely days in the West Bank go suddenly and terribly sideways because the soldiers and settlers who illegally occupy this land are sociopathic. They delight in terrorizing Palestinians. They delight in sadism. Now in my final week in Palestine, at least for the time being, the grief and anger pass more quickly, and I'm actually starting to laugh. It's a dark humor, to be sure. Stealing children's art? Really? If you will pardon my language.
Yeah.
How fucked up do you have to be to steal children's art? I mean, they've done a lot more to children than just stealing their art, so pretty fucked up. But think about it. They are dressed for combat, armed to the teeth, and stealing children's art. There's something darkly humorous about that, perhaps because it's so irrational. But this irrationality is rooted in fear and is also deadly. They are indeed afraid of children's art because they are afraid of children. They're afraid of what these children represent, the future of Palestine. This is why they shoot boys who throw rocks in the West Bank, and why are they killing so many children in Gaza?
It's afraid. It's afraid.
So, yeah. Closing thoughts?
Do not stifle the words of children. Don't do it.
Yep.
I am very fortunate that I work at a school where, again, I have a lot of freedom in terms of what I teach them, but mostly due to thinking of and this is kind of like the ideology in terms of the I don't want to say the curriculum, it's the idea of a person who created this teaching model is the idea of like children have agency in terms of their education. Meaning they should have a voice in terms of what is being taught. And I'm very blessed to be able to do that for 4 and 5 year olds.
Is there a more important job than that of a teacher?
And anything that you can do in terms of helping the next generation understand the reality of what the issues that they will have to face, but giving them the tools to be able to deal with that, I think is very powerful. And to me, this is what this art therapy program represents. It's the idea of working through that pain to be an effective leader and to challenge the establishment. Like, ideally, that's really what we should be doing in our schools today.
Yeah.
Here, everywhere. But yeah, the author is right. This is a way to destroy any potential uprising from Palestinians in the future. So yeah, but yeah, it's also funny that the idea that you are willing to you can't like killing them to be in a way would be the easiest thing. You have to stoop so low than to steal their books, their art, but the beautiful thing about art is that you can recreate it. So as long as the children exist, the art will continue to exist.
Yeah.
It's going to take a lot more work in this case, given that it's part of a therapy program. But the work will still be there. So I just want to give a shout out to these kids, and I'm sure none of these kids will ever watch this, but if ever an event that someone in the West Bank or anywhere in Palestine does, you know, your pictures have power. So continue drawing, continue expressing yourself, continue to define the reality of what you're going. Eventually people will see it, and eventually people will understand who you are. And I, for one, feel very honored. I mean, I only saw a couple of pictures based on the article, but I am very honored to have seen your work and know and understand that I will continue to advocate for you in terms of the healing that you deserve, in terms of the liberation that you're looking for. You may not even realize it, but you are the resistance. So keep drawing.
Well, speaking of resistance, talking about it is most likely why we're demonetized. So you can go to ko-fi.com/indienewsnetwork or scan that QR code on your screen. Help keep stories like this in your news feed. But otherwise, like and share, leave a comment, let us know what you think. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Standard engagement stuff, but you know, let us know what you think. Why do you think this is being done? But otherwise, thanks for watching. All right. To the chats. Before we get to our next story, anything over on Rumble? No. All right. Tons of stuff on YouTube though. Nick Riviera, just their art, they're stealing their organs, pretty much. So, Driving Me Macy says no crayons for Gaza.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Nick says they're being kept as
fundraiser. I think maybe that sounds like a fundraiser.
Crayons for Gaza, sure.
Yeah. No, I say that only like I think for me, hi puppy. Your pups are behind you.
Yeah, you were outside. You were outside. Yeah. You were outside.
You're like in the age of tablets or whatever. Kids these days don't have crayons. They don't have paper. Like I have had kids tell me in the past, like, I don't have markers, I don't have pencils, I don't have crayons to draw. Like that's kind of like a reality of a lot of kids now, which is shocking to me. Like, you know, because growing up, that's all I really had. Like I had everything. Like I had paper and crayon, like probably too much, if anything else, but I was drawing and writing up a storm basically when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
You know, and the fact that a lot of these kids, it's the tech that's kind of replaced it. But it's so funny now, like, especially with my class, like, I notice how they write, like, their grips, there are no grips. This year, especially, there are no, like hand grips for drawing, like, there is none. It's like, they barely know how to draw, much less write. And I think that's just due to tablets.
Yeah, it's
like it's taking, like it's just pointing at things and using your finger rather than using this motion. Like, let me show my camera, like this motion in order to like this takes a lot of work, believe it or not, to have this movement in order to grab a pencil or pen or a pair of scissors or whatever. Like this is like for the last decade.
I mean, there's like this one, the crazy
like that's how my kids write, if like that, which like it's fine, but the idea is that you're writing with a free tri grip, which you know that's what they're working towards, but it's more or less this. and not even that in certain cases. So like, but it's just due to the idea of like they're not using pencils and pens regularly because everything is so digital.
Yeah.
So we were actually talking about this today because like our kids have a book fair, annual book fair this week. So the kids had to bring money in order to buy books that they wanted. And we were talking about even our meeting to my grade level meeting today, like, you know, do kids even know what cash is? Like an actual dollar bill. Like it's gotten to the point now they don't, like, everything now is credit card, like mostly credit card, you know, and not even that anymore. It's like QR codes or like barcodes in order to dominate to kind of take currency now. Like like even to these kids, the idea of holding like
well, it's like 5, ask them to like mime using a phone. You know, like what would like for
it's
you?
Funny, they still do
right this. Well, I know it's like it's here. Like
but you can make that connection with this.
Yeah,
but they haven't. These kids that I've had don't know like a handheld phone.
Right.
Like, they just know smartphones now. So, or not even that, computer. Like,
right.
You know, you speak on a video screen. So, but yeah, just interesting in thinking about that, like how I went on it, like digressed, but you know, but
back to the chat.
Yeah, so,
like Nick Rivera is saying that their art's being kept as souvenirs, trophy, and spoils of war. Possibly.
Sure.
That these are the same people that put on women's lingerie of the women they kill and dishome. So yeah, that's not great people. I'm surprised they're taking away their art because wouldn't that influence them to play with sticks and stones? Says Driving Me Macy. People saying
Natalie
you should
Williams,
do it. Crayons for Palestine.
Natalie Williams is another way. Is another shitty way to demoralize a population. Absolutely.
Yeah.
She also said the death of creativity. I still have that shit, and I'm 61.
Yeah.
Kill your egregors. Writing, drawing is necessary for development mind. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's how young children communicate. Like, you know, and that's what, you know, like when they give you a scribble, like it's meaningful to them. It means something. So, you know, so like to all the families in the chat, parents in the chat, you know, if your child gives you like something that just kind of looks like garbage to you, hang on to it. Don't throw it away. They're trying to tell you something through that.
Yeah.
So that's their way of communicating an idea. So you should celebrate that. Put it on your fridge or whatever and celebrate that shit. So.
Well, speaking of celebrations, you ready for the next one?
That does not.
Does for me. Like being
well,
gotta take some wins, right?
Well, I'm not. Well, we can call this next story a win, and as we said earlier, this is developing and will continue to develop. But I thought about this today. I was probably well too on the nose with the Batman, like with the Batman imagery there. But I mean, it relates to Batman. I thought about it this morning, like
same Bat channel.
You know, Batman became radicalized with the death of his parents due to crime in Gotham. So, like, you know, you can make the argument for Luigi. It's a similar thing, except maybe in terms of healthcare. But we don't even know if
that is his real name. We know nothing. I know
sure it is. But
this whole story, the minute it happened, I'm like, something's up. You know, especially when we needed loads of distractions for Syria to happen and all sorts of other stuff to happen. I'm like, something's up. My smell-o-vision got turned on, you know, but
right.
And it hasn't turned off since then. It's just been quite a bit of sus behavior, you know?
Right.
So
we're going to get into that. And as I said, I'm going to be very careful because he's alleged right now. Like,
mm-hmm.
You say what you want, but we're in a country where we leave innocent until proven guilty.
Yep.
So we're also going to go with that. But as I said earlier, like, here's how we're going to break this down. We're going to break down the CEO. We're going to break down Luigi and what we know, or at least what the media wants you to know. And then we're going to dial it back and let you know what we're really thinking. But in the midst of all of that, as I said earlier, this whole thing is based around healthcare, assumedly, and the corruption within that industry. You guys know me very well. I am a big proponent of universal healthcare in general, especially here. Everyone, I'm sure in the chat, and please let us know if you have horror stories of healthcare in the chat. And like Reef and I, you know, like, I think that's one of the things in independent media. I think generally among us, Savvy, JB, Nick, like Kit, like Cabello, like a lot of us, all of us are kind of united on this issue. One of the issues I think in independent media among us, we're all united over, you know, is universal healthcare. We all have had horrible experiences of healthcare in this country, whether with among us personally or among our own families. So for us, healthcare is a big issue in generally. Like, we support the idea generally of a universal healthcare system here. That, I say all of that, and I said this earlier, don't make the mistake of tying this issue to a person. Luigi should not be the face of the corruption of healthcare in this country. Let the issue stand for itself, because the issue in of itself is eternal. We're going to forget Luigi at some point. Maybe. You know? But the idea of universal healthcare should be eternal. So I say all of that because I don't want people to get in this trap in like the person epitomizing the idea versus the idea should stand for it. So that being said, let's get into it. So we're first going to talk about the CEO. Well, actually, I'm not. Caitlin Johnson is going to. So she's going to talk about who the real villains are in this whole thing. So let's hear what, actually, Tim Foley is going to read this.
Yep.
Let's hear what Tim Foley has to say.
The real villains. The CEO of health insurance giant United Healthcare was gunned down by a masked assailant on Wednesday, much to the delight of Americans who've been suffering under their nation's abusive healthcare system and the sociopathic profiteers who make their fortunes exploiting them through it. United Healthcare has an unusually high rate of claim denials, even compared to its fellow predatory health insurance companies. And as CEO of the company, Brian Thompson was personally raking in $10.2 million a year. The casings on the bullets used to murder Thompson reportedly had the words deny, defend, and depose written on them, an apparent reference to the delay, deny, defend tactics notoriously used by health insurance companies to avoid payouts. According to Thompson's wife, he had been receiving threats from people because of his company's actions, telling NBC News that the threats were from people who were angry about, quote, I don't know, a lack of coverage? ? That's an actual quote, by the way. The way she phrased it as a question says so much about how psychologically compartmentalized she had been from her husband's predatory behavior. Like the wife of a mob boss who doesn't think too hard about where all the money and gifts are coming from.
Yeah, he works at waste management.
The conversations this story has sparked are very interesting. I've seen a lot of posts online highlighting the fact that the murder victim in this case was himself a murderer, and a much more prolific one than any serial killer or mass shooter who's ever lived. The only difference was that his style of murder was protected by the law.
Right.
Mm-hmm. This really nails home the point that the legal system is not intended to protect ordinary citizens from the worst people in our society. It's there to protect the very worst in our society from ordinary citizens. You can see this just by watching the frenetic police manhunt that's underway for Brian Thompson's killer, while Thompson himself was walking around a free man, and an obscenely wealthy one at that, despite his having made his wealth via profits reaped from corporate policies designed to deprive sick and injured people of health care as frequently as possible.
Can you pause there for a second?
None of the world's worst.
And also, this guy was known to do insider trading that was being looked into. So he wasn't he's not a good guy. And look, I'm not saying that he should be dead. But the idea that people are saying, oh, you should have sympathy for him in terms of because he was a father and like a husband and there are millions of people who have died who are also fathers and have kids that are dead now because their insurance companies screwed them over. So, you can't call out one without necessarily calling out the other. And Caitlin said a great point here. His crimes are legal.
Yeah.
But allegedly Luigi wasn't. So there's a difference there. Keep going.
People are in prison. Our society is fed a steady diet of movies and shows depicting heroic protagonists fighting villains who abuse and murder people in illegal ways, when in real life the actual villains of our society murder people in ways that are completely legal. None of their abuses are against the law. Everyone's talking about the murderous practices of U.S. health insurance companies today, and rightly so. But we should also bring awareness to the fact that it isn't just billionaire healthcare corporations who are killing and abusing people at mass scale for profit. Anyone who rakes in billions is building an empire on the blood, sweat, and tears of ordinary people. At the very least, they are leveraging unfair socioeconomic systems to extract labor from people around the world at extortionate rates, because everyone needs money and most people are born under the unfortunate circumstance of having nothing to sell but their labor. Workers are given the bare minimum slice of the corporate pie in order to maximize profits. In exactly the same way, health insurance companies deny claims to maximize profits, keeping huge numbers of people toiling and crushing poverty. These abuses are exceptionally worse in the ways they are inflicted upon the populations of the global South. And poverty kills. That's the bare minimum level of abusiveness you will find in these billionaire corporations. The most profitable ones are far more abusive. They actively work to create more and more war, ecocide, exploitation, and inequality because these things increase their profits. They lobby governments for more wars and militarism around the world because they manufacture weapons of war. They lobby governments to shrink environmental regulations because they maximize their corporate profits by pillaging the earth and externalizing the costs of industry onto the biosphere we all depend on. They lobby governments for fewer worker protections because worker protections eat into profits. They lobby governments for exploitative trade agreements because globalization gives them a steady supply of cheap wage slaves with fewer workers' rights. They lobby governments to privatize services and resources so they can turn things people are already getting into coercive mechanisms of private profit extraction. These abuses are the product of the exploitative, profit-driven, competition-based systems under which we all live. In a system where it's profitable to sell health insurance and frequently deny insurance claims, you're going to see psychopaths rise to obscene levels of wealth and power by profiteering off health insurance. In a system where war is profitable, you're going to see psychopaths rise to obscene levels of wealth and power by profiteering off war. In a system where ecocide is profitable, you are going to see psychopaths rise to obscene levels of wealth and power by profiteering off ecocide. In a system where exploitation is profitable, you're going to see psychopaths rise to obscene levels of wealth and power by profiteering off exploitation. Our laws and police forces exist first and foremost to protect these abusive systems. They are not there to protect us. They are there to protect our abusers. They're there to make sure what happened to Brian Thompson happens as rarely as possible, and that people like him are able to abuse people like you and me with total impunity.
There was a quote that part right there, I think I think that's kind of where a lot of the gray area is. I think more especially like the doubt that seeds of doubt that have been planted in terms of like how legit this is. We know that the police operate to protect the elite. So, which I think where it gets messy because Luigi is among the elite. So what's the connection there? We don't quite know. But what is all of this leading to in terms of what are they trying to hide or cover up? Or like what are what are they trying to maneuver here in terms of, and we'll get into it later, but kind of a lot of things are seen to kind of fall into place very quickly, which hasn't made a lot of sense to you or Indy from the jump. And I think even from today, it was just kind of like, I was kind of on the fence. And now I've been like, something has been whatever.
Yep.
Regardless. So Kaylin breaks it down in terms of, the exploitation, not just of our healthcare system, but like the exploitation of the elites in general, like whether it's here or worldwide. Now let's break down what mainstream media is saying more specifically about Luigi. So I forgot this chick's name, and for all intents and purposes, I don't care to know her name. But she's on News Nation. So this is some of what she said. Now, keep in mind, a lot of this was kind of early on, just as early on this week, as allegedly Luigi was pinned down to this crime. So let's see what she has to say regarding all of this. So go ahead.
Great job. Well done. What promise that kid had 9 years ago. Great job. What promise. Oh my God. Can you imagine being that teacher now, those fellow students?
Yes.
Well, it turns out that the school he appeared to love so dearly had to blast out an email today saying that they are, quote, deeply distressed at what's happened. And we found a more recent, more ominous peek into Mangione's mindset from his reading list on the website Goodreads, a list that has now been locked down. Remember I told you at the top of the show, poof, things just quickly disappear? Well, in one post, Mangione gives 4 stars to a book by none other than Ted Kaczynski, the mathematician turned terrorist known as the Unabomber. And of that book, Luigi writes this: it's easy to quickly and thoughtlessly write this off as the manifesto of a lunatic in order to avoid facing some of the uncomfortable problems it identifies.
He ain't wrong.
Goes on to say, when all other forms of communication fail, violence is necessary to survive. You may not like his message, but to see things from his perspective, it's not terrorism, it's war and revolution, end quote, the suspected CEO killer says of Ted Kaczynski's writing. And finally, again, Mangione says this of Kaczynski: peaceful protest is outright ignored. Economic protest isn't possible in the current system. So how long until we realize that such violence against those who lead us to such destruction is justified as self-defense? Again, the words of Luigi Mangione when referring to Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, murderer, terrorist. And I mentioned the suspect also had a manifesto of his own when he was busted today, which reportedly reads in part, "These parasites had it coming," end quote. And, quote, "I do apologize for any strife and trauma, but it had to be done," end quote. I can't stop thinking about what
that same manifesto also said, hey, feds, good people, as like the first sentence. So
we'll get into the manifesto.
Yeah.
one very significant word.
Or at least
Parasites.
mostly, so.
Plural, parasites. Are we going to find out later that this suspected killer allegedly had other targets? Plural?
Hopefully.
Believe me, we are just at the beginning of this case, folks. After the break, he didn't get far. He was not on the loose for very long.
Thanks for watching. Go to
No, fuck you, Ashla Banfield,
that's
with
her
your
name, Ashla
fucking
Banfield.
bourgeoisie
So,
bullshit.
She talks about how violence is not okay. I want to show you someone who thought it was.
I guarantee you
I
she
wonder what
finds
she's gonna
violence
say
okay.
about him.
Probably beats her kids every morning. Well, anyway,
Go ahead. Let's see what Nelson Mandela has to
Choose
say regarding
peace
violence.
rather than confrontation, except in cases where we cannot
You don't need
proceed,
to speed it up.
where we cannot move forward. Then, if the only alternative is violence, we will use violence.
Sounds familiar.
He said it. Yeah.
What's
He said choose
Ture's-
peace, but if you can't get it,
What's nonviolence only works when your oppressors have a conscience. You know? So
So we can play any any civil rights leader, mostly, who would kind of disagree with you, Ashley, in terms of violence. Like, violence begets violence. You cause violence on the people, they're going to respond in kind. The only difference, as I said earlier, your kind of violence is accepted and almost legal, as Caitlin said. Ours isn't. Shout out to, this is actually Ryan Knight, those of you who know him, at Proud Socialist, and he tweeted a part of Luigi Mangione's manifesto. I'm saying
allegedly.
Allegedly. Okay. I do apologize for any strife or traumas, but it had to be done. Frankly, these parasites simply had it coming. A reminder, the US has the #1 most expensive healthcare system in the world, yet we rank roughly 42 in life expectancy. United is the largest company in the US by market cap, behind only Apple, Google, Walmart. It has grown and grown, but has our life expectancy. No, the reality is, these health insurance companies have simply gotten too powerful, and they continue to abuse our country for immense profit because the American public have allowed them to get away with it. Obviously, the problem is more complex, but I do not have the space, and frankly, I do not pretend to be the most qualified person to lay out the full argument. But many have illuminated the corruption and greed decades ago, and the problems simply remain. It is not an issue of awareness at this point, but clearly power games at play. Evidently, I am the first to face it with such brutal honesty. So, those were allegedly his words. And we're going to get into more of what people in the past have had to say about our universal, of our healthcare system. But here's Luigi yesterday being taken in by the cops. And this was the part where I think surprised a lot of people in terms of what he said here.
Oh, dude, come on.
As completely out of touch, and it's an insult to the intelligence.
Oh, I cut it too short.
Insult to the intelligence of the American people.
And yeah, you can actually try and play it in full.
Yeah, here, I'll do this.
But yeah, I cut it too short because it repeated twice. So.
Oh, dude, come on.
As completely out of touch, and it's an insult to the intelligence of the American people and its lived experience.
Well, basically said that this is an insult to the American people. Now, I have a theory as to why, because I shared this with Reef just before we went live. I'll speak more into that later, but keep that quote in mind. This is an insult to the American people. So this is an article. Actually, you could switch screens back.
Yep.
This is an article from the International Business Times, which the streets have been saying that this was Luigi's alleged motive. So Luigi Mangione was reported missing by family after back surgery a month before he shot and killed United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson.
Allegedly.
Mangione's family sent him a message to his classmates because he went missing and they were trying to find him. So that's the story that's going on right now. Apparently, he wasn't speaking to his family for months, to the point where they put him on they classified him as a missing person, allegedly. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but in the article it says, meanwhile, RJ Martin, a friend and former roommate in Hawaii, told CNN that Mangione had often discussed his back problems in the past. When I first interviewed him before he moved in, I remember he said he had a back issue and he was hoping to get stronger in Hawaii, Martin said. The roommate described Mangione's back problems as so traumatic and difficult that a single surfing lesson left him bedridden for a week. When Mangione had surgery, Martin said that his friend shared X-ray images with him. So I think you've probably seen those images of the screws in his back online. But it looked heinous with just giant screws going into his spine, RJ said. Sources suggest that Mangione may have held a personal vendetta against the United Healthcare CEO due to his experiences with the medical industry. One clue supporting this theory is an X-ray on his X account, which shows 4 pins in the spine. Also, Mangione's Goodreads accounts reveal 5 books related to chronic back pain, including titles like Crooked, Outwitting the Back Pain Industry, and Getting on the Road to Recovery, and Why We Get Sick, the Hidden Epidemic at the Root of the Most Chronic Disease, and How to Fight It. The books were added to his virtual bookshelf between May 2022 and February 2023. So there's the alleged motive.
Well, looks like we got ourselves a reader.
But even with this, I'm just thinking, like, assuming if it's true, why United Healthcare? And I was talking with DJ Joe Nice, shout out to him about this, because it's like, unless if he had United Healthcare or if his family had United Healthcare, this seemed very random to me. Like, you know, like, why not someone else? Like, why not another health industry CEO? Like for Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, whatever. It just seems, not to say that it couldn't be true, but it just seems without, and again, I think really, honestly, like, assuming this is true, show your bills. Like, show your insurance card of proof that you've had United Healthcare. You know, because if you're able to show that, then that may make more sense to me. But as of right now, it just seems very random that it was this guy that he chose out of the belief right now that he had a personal health vendetta with the CEO due to his problems, which makes sense, but without necessarily knowing for sure what insurance he had, it doesn't make sense to me that why this guy. So I don't know, but I mean, do you have any thoughts on this? Like, it,
I mean, a lot of allegedlys being thrown around, you know,
right?
Like, I mean, I felt like there was too much consent that needs to be manufactured and too many things to be distracted by for this entire story to be on the up and up as far as accuracy. I mean, we don't even know if this is the person and the motivations and I mean, it just seems like too Hollywood scripty to me. You know, like that's
This I said this feels like a CSI episode or a Law and Order episode.
Like not. I mean, it just seems like I don't know. My
in the chat saying his family. In the chat, his family wasn't helping with his medical bills. Right, like the kid is 26. Yeah. So, like, we don't know. Like,
he would have been just kicked off. He would have been just kicked off of the insurance.
Right.
As a 25.
So assuming that. Right. So assuming that he needed this back surgery when he was probably on his family's insurance.
Yeah.
Unless if he didn't have his own insurance by then, depending on what job he had. You know.
Which we're not even sure that the job is part of the problem with the back surgery. We don't know. I don't know what the cost of, like, what caused the back problem to begin with.
Allegedly from like he went surfing and did something to his back or whatever. Okay. So that's the story. But so yeah, there's just a lot of
weirdness.
Question marks all around this. But anyway. Let's go to these bitches. But I want to play part of this clip because they bring up something that I don't think people have mentioned yet, that might also add to the question marks regarding this story. So this you'll probably have to speed up. So you can go ahead when you're ready.
So Tim Clemente is here now, former FBI counterterrorism agent, Mary Ellen O'Toole, senior profiler for the FBI, and Mark O'Mara, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor. Tim, can I start with you? I just want to play again that outburst because, you know, often when you see a suspect like this, there's a stone-faced would be the way you describe them.
Tim,
this
fix your room noise.
More the opposite of that. Luigi Mangione right outside court today. Here he is.
Oh my God! And completely out of touch and insult the intelligence of the American people and lived experience.
Tim, it's disturbing to watch that. What he says, we had it written on the bottom of the screen, but just in case anyone's just listening, it's completely out of touch and an insult to the intelligence of the American people. It's lived experience. You hear him shout, and he sounds distressed. He's fighting against police as he does that. What do you make of this?
This is him showing himself, showing what he cares about, which is himself, obviously. I mean, he's not distraught, not going in there with his head held low, not going in there like he's embarrassed by this. This is his moment. And apparently in the last 5 or 6 days, he's probably looked at a lot of social media and seen how many adulating fans he has around the world that are saying he's a hero. These mistaken, misguided people that are trying to say what he did was good. I mean, he committed a cold-blooded murder, obviously.
Look at CNN saying the same thing that Republicans say. Look at that.
Planned it for some time, and now he's basking in the limelight. This is his moment. This is 15 minutes of fame, and he's taking all the advantage he can out of it.
Mary Ellen, there was also a photo taken during those moments in the hearing, and as I described this, the rage is palpable. The sneer, the rage from his eyes, from his expression, the sneer on his face, his mouth,
if the
and we also
unibrow
have the
don't
mugshot.
fit, you must
This
acquit.
is just a straight stare. But when you look at him in these photos and when you see that outburst, that rage in that still photo, what do you see, Mary Ellen?
Well, there are definitely signs of rage and anger, but here's the conundrum. You have to really look at what his behavior was like, for example, in the car pulling up there before they got him out of the car. Was he cool, calm, and collected? So then he gets out of the car, and then he immediately has this outburst. So was that brought about by the fact that the cameras are on, the media was there, and it immediately put him into the role of wanting a lot of attention? And you have to consider that before you rule it one way or the other. I've seen a lot of offenders, when they go to court, they will act up because it is their time to get that attention, to get that notoriety. The other thing that I look at with him is this: if he was so quick to anger like that, there's an absence of any kind of reports of him getting in fights with people, of him even being arrested by the police for this quick temper. So something is causing this, and it's important that investigators they'll go back to take a look at, is there something medically, is there something mentally, to better understand what's going on with him.
So, Mark, what's interesting in terms of if this was him trying to seize the moment and control the narrative and have his moment in front of the cameras, when he was in court today with his lawyer, and so he's just met this lawyer, right? His lawyer has admitted that he told his client at one point to be quiet and not talk, and then also said this about Mangione.
This is not just a small thing. The fundamental concept of American justice is the presumption of innocence, and until you're proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and I've seen zero evidence at this point.
What do you think of that, Mark?
First of all, just zero evidence, okay, because nothing has come out yet. I would probably be a bit more circumspect about saying it because we know some of the evidence is out there. This case is going to run 2 tracks. One track is the forensic evidence. Did he do it from an evidentiary standpoint? It's going to be very strong because our digital evidence is so strong in cases like this, from cameras to the cell phones themselves. But the other part of it is the mental health mitigation. If they can prove he did it, then the question is why? And I see in those outbursts and his actions, I see nuggets of mental health mitigation coming out to the forefront. And everything has been consistent for 6 months or more, from the, coming off social media, stopping conversations with his family and friends, some bizarre behaviors that we've seen. All of that, I think, is going to show itself as a beginnings of a mental health defense to not did he do it, but why.
Right. Okay. Which could be crucial. So, Tim, to this point.
So I don't think people have said this, but they're already kind of putting in your head mental health.
Right.
Like, oh, well, I think the idea that he went kind of
overwhelming.
Dark.
Yeah, all that shit.
Yeah. So, but I think the idea that he went dark for months, well, they said 2 weeks. He wasn't in contact with his parents for 2 weeks before this actual alleged thing, so, but again, I don't want to make this a race issue. Like, if he were Black, I'm not sure he would necessarily get mental health.
No.
In terms of a motive that would almost kind of sympathize him a little bit.
He wouldn't have even made it to that point. So
no, he would be dead already.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind, because that's probably, we'll see if they go that track, but they're already kind of in their way, kind of softening the blow. And again, I think it has to do, again, a lot with his wealth. He came from a rich family. He comes from a prominent family in Maryland. He's part of the elite. So, I don't think they necessarily want to make it seem like, if he were a person of color, to make it be way worse. They're trying to soften the blow a little bit. So yeah, that's just a thought that I had just in hearing them say he had mental health issues. So go ahead.
Mangione's mother, according to the New York Times, reportedly filed a missing persons report for him in San Francisco, on November 18th. That was just 2 weeks before the shooting. Now, as Mark's pointing out, we know that Mangione stopped communicating with family and friends about 6 months ago. So that timing may make this even more mysterious, right? Nobody reports him missing, as we understand it at this point, for 6 months until 2 weeks before the actual shooting. And it also brings into context this. And does everyone remember this image right here of him on the phone? That's just a few minutes before Brian Thompson walks down the street, Tim, and is allegedly killed by Mangione. He's on his cell phone, and he's talking to someone. So now we know he'd really cut off contact with everyone. It makes that call perhaps even more important. Who do you think he may have been talking to?
Well, Aaron, it's a guess on my part, but I would think that somebody might have been helping him locate Thompson and time Thompson's arrival to the hotel for the convention. And so it could have been something innocent and inadvertent, like talking to a doorman at the hotel that Thompson was staying at, making a plea. Hey, I sent my resume to United Healthcare, and I'm really hoping to meet the CEO today at the investors conference. Can you just let me know when he's arriving? Maybe I can bump into him in the lobby or something. And you do something like that and say, hey, here's my number. Call me if you find out when he's leaving the hotel. Or it could be, there's a possibility of accomplices. He wrote in his mini manifesto that, to the feds that he acted alone, but that doesn't mean he's telling the truth. But I think there's a possibility that he was gaining intelligence, and that phone call had something to do with that, because the close proximity to the time and place of the killing is very important. And it's a call that I'm sure NYPD and the FBI are tracking down in every way they can.
And Mark, I know you think that call is crucial too now.
I think it's crucial for a couple reasons. I think, look, when you plan on shooting somebody, if that was true, you also probably plan on getting shot yourself. I think that phone call may have been saying goodbye to somebody, whether it's a mother, a friend, whatever. Could have been a co-conspirator, cohort. I grant you that. But I think it's going to be significant because of who he was possibly saying goodbye to more than anything else.
So, Reef, you missed that, but allegedly, and it's hard to I say allegedly more so because you can't see his face. But a person's walking by making a phone call. So they're saying allegedly that it was him making a phone call just before the shooting. So, but again, we can't see his face. Like, he has a backpack, but that's it. Like, that could be anyone in New York at that time. So, but they're already kind of jumping to the conclusion that it's him, and he was probably making a phone call to someone, like, to whom they don't know. But the assumption is that they that he might be talking to someone, possibly an accomplice, in terms of maybe like where Brian Thompson was located or whatever, so he can go to them, or calling like possibly a family member or somebody, you know. So again, we don't know, but then again, we don't have any of those. We don't have any phone records to kind of confirm that either. So
yeah.
So that's kind of the latest thing that mainstream media is kind of pulling to kind of give more of a, I guess, a motive potentially of what Luigi allegedly was doing just before the murder.
Okay.
So just thought it was interesting that they mentioned that, which is why I played that. So okay, I'm done with Luigi, at least for now.
Cool.
I wanted to play this, and I think I had 3 slides in this. I think 3.
Okay.
You brought me this.
Mm-hmm.
This is from a documentary that was published back in 1994, which is called Give Me Single Universal Healthcare or Give Me Death. So again,
I was 1 year old. 1 year old of what
right.
I was.
So if you're worrying about the quality, that's why of the video. But I think people need to remember that the idea of universal healthcare honestly has been around, or at least has been kind of talked about since the 60s at least. So, but it got some emphasis in the 90s, early 90s. And this documentary kind of talks about that. So I put the link. You can watch it on YouTube. It's an hour long. I did put it in the description if you guys want to watch it. It's probably worth watching the whole thing. So don't think that Bernie was the one who like made this idea. This has been an idea forever, for decades in this country.
Yeah.
So, but again, this is my way of kind of saying, do not use Luigi as the crux for this issue. Make the issue of itself the issue. So again, I know you guys have horror stories regarding universal healthcare, but we're gonna hear at least one. But yeah, so we're gonna do this in 3 parts. So we're gonna play this first part regarding, you know, the need for universal healthcare. So you can play. This is short, so you can play that first.
We'll have more news later. But now let's see our documentary about healthcare in the United States and the best form of it. See a documentary called Healing America.
It's eating people alive, and this just can't continue.
I went through the nightmare that millions of people like myself go through, and this has got to be changed.
We have people who are avoiding treatment because they can't afford insurance or they can't afford health care, which is what we really want, is health care, not health insurance. If they would provide us with health care nationally as opposed to health insurance, I think we would be going in the right direction.
For every American, health care is their right.
I don't think there is any doubt that the American people do want fundamental health care reform.
Band-aid approaches to health care will not solve the problem. It's only going to get worse.
Hello, I'm John Wilson. The program you're about to see could very well save your life, or at least improve the quality of your life, in a country where health care has become a national crisis, disrupting the peace of mind and the lives of far too many Americans. This volunteer-produced video endorses no political party or candidate. It is the product of a growing grassroots movement dedicated to bringing the United States into line with the rest of the industrialized world, a world that accepts health care as a human right and a national responsibility. Join us now as we take a hard look at some of the devastating effects of the medical insurance industry in America. What is important here will be the practical solution we offer, one that is fair, affordable, and has a proven record of performance. It's known around the world as the single-payer system of universal health care. More and more Americans from all walks of life are supporting the single-payer plan as they discover that it's the only plan that will reduce costs and at the same time maintain the high quality of health care that Americans have come to expect from our medical system. First, let's meet some people who have agreed to share their medical stories. They could easily be your neighbors, your friends, your family. The only difference, perhaps, is that they place their trust in today's healthcare industry only to find themselves living the nightmare of an insurance system that abandoned them.
So this was done yesterday? This was yesterday?
Nope.
These are their stories. They could one day be yours.
You can go to the next clip. So there were a few testimonies, so I chose one for time.
Understood.
So you can go to the next slide and the next clip.
I'm working on it. I'm getting there. I'm doing it. Full screen.
Our family has benefited greatly from having a very good medical system in this country. Our son was born with some breathing problems and urinary problems, which if we had not had a very sophisticated medical system in the United States, he would not be alive today. The problem that we have had recently, or over the last 3 years, has been that because of the type of group plan our insurance was under, our rates continue to rise because of both my son's illness and an illness that I had. Between the two of us, our insurance went to over $900 a month.
Hillary Clinton should
now
hear.
We are faced with dialysis and transplant in the near future, and our policy, or at this point David's policy, is very limited in what it will cover, particularly with transplant. Fortunately, with our system, Medicare does cover transplants, but only covers for drug therapy 1 year after transplant. So the very thing that keeps a person alive after transplant, which is the drug therapy, is then cut out after 1 year, as of today. I guess as a middle-class person and having worked for any number of years, both Steve and myself, I found it very frustrating when our insurance premiums got unpayable for us, that I began to research through the social system that our country has in place, and Medicaid would be able to help us out if we made under $13,000 a year. Well, we make more than $13,000 a year, and so we could not avail ourselves of that coverage. And I think that if we did go on Medicaid, we would have something like a $2,700 a month deductible, was what they told us. And I talked to the lady and I said, well, gee, that's really undoable for us. And I asked her if she had any other suggestions of what we might do. And her comment to me was, well, have you ever thought of moving to another country, a country that has health care provided? And that...
Yep, pause there. You heard what she said?
Yeah,
that fucking doctor said?
Move. The doctor said to move.
Which,
get the fuck
thinking about
here.
that now, that's such a privileged stance.
Yep.
And I said this to you because I talked to my mom about this yesterday. And funny enough, my mom's doctor said to her the same fucking thing recently. Like, in terms of healthcare that she needed and like trying to figure out how to pay for it. And her doctor said the same shit. Like, my mom, you know, lived in London for a time. Like, that's where I was born.
Yeah.
You know, and she lives in New Jersey now. And, you know, she's American citizen, so she can't live in London now. But, you know, the doctor basically said, well, why didn't you go back to London? I told my mom she should have cussed that doctor right the fuck out there.
Yeah, dude. Like,
you know, but
fuck you.
Right. But yeah, but like, and I don't want to blame all doctors because I know a lot of doctors are just fed up with the insurance companies too, because they have to deal with them in terms of reimbursement for the care that they're receiving. But the idea that a doctor will kind of tell you that, and like, the patient is not the problem. It's the people that are above you that are the problem.
Right.
That I just kind of feel is just really wrong, because that's not the idea of, like, as a doctor, of what you're there to do. You typically go in there to serve your patients. But I also kind of hear it like that's a lot of the frustration that doctors have with the people above them.
Yeah.
That they say and react in the way that they do with their patients, which I think is just wrong. So that's why I played that part, because my mom told me that yesterday of what a doctor recently told her.
Yeah.
So let's play the last clip. As I said, there are more stories like this, and you guys have probably had
Our family
but let's play this part.
Nice of Rachel Maddow to star in this, though. It's real nice of her. But it's full screen.
And we have asked people to leave our insurance plan for less than this. And I know now, in retrospect, that it was all because of money and insurance reasons. You see, you can't leave your job because you can't have your insurance to have your illness with. You can't even go to another job. But for sure, you can't even leave your job, even though you feel sick enough to want to.
This is again 1994.
There should be no connection between job and insurance. I'm sure this helped cause my downfall. It is almost impossible to go through chemo and work. And a lot of people do it, but a lot of people shouldn't have to do it. And that's why I want to say this, because it's got to get better.
Shout out to our girl Shanda Masta dealing with this now, like right now. Like, ain't nothing changed.
Has to change.
Right.
These are tragic stories indeed, but the real tragedy lies in the fact that they are heard far too often in this great nation of ours. So what are the alternatives for these people and for the millions of uninsured and underinsured Americans? What are your alternatives? Most of us are ready for change, but it must be change that makes a real difference, that goes beyond hit-or-miss health care coverage. For to do nothing, or simply to patch the present system, can only dim long-term prospects for bringing quality care to all Americans. Many experts familiar with the crisis in health care strongly support a single-payer plan. Let's listen now to some of them explain why we need single-payer and how it would work to prevent these and other health care insurance disasters from happening ever again in America.
Single payer will never come to
Center and
pass.
Associate Professor of Health Policy and Management is Dr. Jay Wolfson.
We spend an awful lot of money in both the public and the private sectors on helping to finance administrative-related costs that have nothing to do with the provision of health care services to people. And it's not the fault of the providers, it's not the fault of the hospitals, it's not the fault of the physicians. It's not necessarily even the fault of the government. It's a system we've kind of fallen into because in the early days of health benefits and health insurance, nobody was interested in nor willing to provide that function. And the insurance industry stepped in naturally. Well, now as a society, both public and private sectors, we have to ask ourselves some very probing questions. Do we need the insurance industry to provide us with health care services? Do we need the insurance industry to provide us with access to health care services?
No.
I think not. I think we've become sophisticated enough technologically. We have enough information about costs and prices and needs of populations, and we certainly can learn more, that if we abandoned the multiplicity of dozens and dozens of fiscal intermediaries pretending to help us receive health care benefits, and instead structured a system where the money we currently spend on health care in both public and private sectors is pooled and a guaranteed minimum level of benefits may be provided, that allows for a lot of things. For one thing, it helps hospitals and other health care providers to reduce...
Look at this graph. Okay, 1994, yes? Yeah, here's 1980, 1985. Look, the physician. This is all the doctor money the doctor get. The ones actually providing the health care. This is all the money the administration gets. Look at that, 500% increase. And
which
I bet
includes
you...
the CEOs of these companies.
I bet you this is exponential and fucking through the roof now. So...
Right.
You know,
reduce those incredible administrative costs that they're currently spending now. And that money can be then channeled toward care, toward services, toward technology. And that's very important.
Well, it seems that some people are thinking that the single-pay system is socialized medicine. Can you comment on that?
Now, there's a real misunderstanding among many Americans about what a single-payer system might involve. Many Americans believe that people are talking about a socialized health insurance system. But I don't think that's accurate. When we talk about a socialized health insurance system, we're really talking about ownership of the means of production by the state. And that means that the physicians, the hospitals, the nurses, the dentists, the clinics, the pharmaceutical companies would literally be owned and employed by the government. That's the case in some countries. That is not what the single-payer system
does pretty well for
suggests. Rather, it suggests that all providers of healthcare services be paid from a single or a unified source of payment. That all of the money that's currently being diverted to hundreds and hundreds of various third-party middle people organizations be pooled either regionally or at the state level or perhaps even nationally, and that the reimbursement to providers, to physicians, to hospitals, to nurses, to dentists, and for other healthcare services be established on a uniform fee schedule basis. And we've been heading this way with national government policy. We have come to recognize that health is a very valuable commodity in our country, not just because people need it, but because health has really become our most valuable asset in our community. As I've studied other nations, particularly Japan, I've come to realize that both the private and public sectors value the health of their citizens and their employees, because a healthy employee, a healthy citizen, is a productive employee. And the productive citizen, and that's one of the places I believe we may have fallen behind. But I don't believe it's too late to catch up. And if we focus on ensuring, not insuring, but ensuring and assuring access to quality health care services for people with an emphasis on promotion and wellness and reasonable cost, we can significantly reduce the cost of administering our current health care system with a single-payer program.
You can stop there.
Dr. Mark.
But, yeah. Again, 1994. This was mentioned. So I'm sure most of you have not seen that. So don't think that was Bernie who made this. Like, he just capitalized it, you know, in terms of what was happening, you know, a few years ago. But this very idea of universal healthcare has been around forever. So, you know, so shout out to you, Reef, for pulling that. So, but let's move on. So let's go to
I will
our
say,
colleague,
so Indy sent me
ahead.
this, that Grand Theft World said this is Luigi tossing the gun. You know, they supposedly stated that the gun was in his possession at the McDonald's, but that looks like he's getting rid of something.
Well, we don't know if it's a gun.
Yeah, I don't either. So, but I can't tell anything else necessarily, and he just walks off. So, possibly,
and
it
again,
seems
that we
pretty
don't know if
close
it's
to the
him.
crime to like just leave your,
I mean, it's the same shoes that he was wearing in that other video where with the
It's
phone.
the same backpack too. I mean, I do believe
Same
that's him.
backpack. But again, we don't know if that's him.
Yeah.
You know? So, so someone quoted that from the Lorax, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to get better. It's not. Our colleague Robert Durgan tweeted, "You'll never get a jury to convict someone living in the hellscape U.S. who went through this, read the Lorax, and then lost his shit. This relates to everyone except the rich."
Yep.
So again, you heard it in the stories again from the doc that we played back in 1994. This has been an issue in this country for decades. So, all right. So let's get to the real of it. You and particularly Indy have been calling foul on this from the jump. And I know other people in this space have called this out. I've been kind of on the fence, but as of things that came out today, I'm kind of less. I'm not feeling this at all. It kind of started with the lawyer. Now, by the way, this is a lawyer that more than likely the family is paying for. This is not a court-ordered lawyer. Like, you know how they give you a Miranda rights. It's like, if you can't afford an attorney, one will be offered to you at no charge.
Yeah, public defender is
public defender. Like, yeah. So he's not a public defender. So this is a guy that I believe would guess that the family hired for Luigi.
Yeah.
So even with that, this kind of seems suspect to me. But regardless, let's see what he has to say regarding the evidence that was brought up as of maybe a day or two ago, because this is when this hotspot was pulled, and see what he has to say regarding how likely this guy was to actually commit this crime.
Right. Let me full screen it.
The suspect's attorney, Thomas Dickey, addressing the charges against his client while speaking to reporters just a few minutes ago. Take a listen.
Listen, I haven't seen any evidence that says that he's the shooter. So that's, you know, like I said earlier, and I wasn't kidding around. A couple of things. If you're going to report something, report accurately. And remember, and this is not just a small thing, the fundamental concept of American justice is a presumption of innocence, and until you're proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And I've seen zero evidence at this point.
He said across the board he anticipates that his client, Mangione, will likely plead not guilty, as you said, to the charges there in Pennsylvania for that ghost gun and fake IDs that police said that they found on him when he was arrested, and that when those murder charges officially come down from New York, that they anticipate pleading not guilty there as well. He's saying he hasn't seen any evidence that his client is the shooter. He's saying he should be presumed innocent for now. And we know that Dickey was hired just this afternoon. He's a private criminal defense attorney in that Pennsylvania area obtained by Mangione. He was by his side in that extradition hearing earlier today. This, of course, all coming after Mangione's arrest at that McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania yesterday. And Dickey explained that he believed his client was entitled to bail and believed that the judge should have said it today. And earlier he said that Mangione is taking this as well as he can.
Yeah. So keep in mind, like right now, he's still in Pennsylvania. He had to be extradited in New York. That's what they're working on right now in order to give him, and I believe he will be charged with secondhand murder, I believe, in New York. So, so that's what they're going to be working on for the next month. So, Nick from Revolutionary Blackout Work also, and I know other of our colleagues have too, also are kind of like something seems off with all of this. So let's see what he has to say. I can't hear it.
Can't hear it?
No.
Hold on.
Well, it doesn't matter about me, just making sure our family's listening, being able to hear it.
Sorry.
The story of Luigi Mangione being arrested after the assassination of that leech Brian Thompson does not pass the smell test. You mean to tell me they found this guy 5 days later in a random McDonald's wearing the same clothes he performed the assassination in? Not only did he apparently have the same clothes on, he also had his murder weapon on him. Bro, you are supposed to toss the murder weapon, not keep it on you, just in case there was any plausible deniability. This guy...
Indy said the other day that like with the amount of time that guy had, you could have disassembled that gun down to its like base atoms and put it in dumpsters around the city. Like you would have had so much time to get rid of everything. Everything could have gotten rid of.
Especially since you had overwhelming support.
Right.
Like,
you know, found an industrial grinder and then put the dust in the Hudson. Like, you know, so many options.
Allegedly kept his manifesto on him, which is a prosecutor's wet dream, which laid out his entire motives. And apparently Luigi was caught.
That then was given to Ken Klippenstein, which is another fucking, like, red flag to me. When it's the first fucking sentence of it is like, the feds, I think, are nice people, but, you know, I'm sure they're going to try hard. You know, they're going to do good.
Right.
So, yeah. And he said not that he's ever thought about that before. Yeah, just a couple of pigs up upstate New York, get rid of the body. Okay, fuck it,
because someone in McDonald's recognized him and called the cops. The person who snitched on Luigi Mangione is the biggest class traitor in modern history. And apparently the most wanted man in America decided to chill at a McDonald's not get to go, but stay there and wait until the police showed up. If I just pulled off a high-profile assassination and became the most wanted man in America, I'm staying in a safe house for at least a month, let alone going out to eat at a McDonald's in the same outfit they committed the murder in. Get the fuck out of here. Luigi Mangione was either set up or he's the dumbest motherfucker of all time. While I don't necessarily know the motive for the ruling class doing this, there's nothing wrong at looking at a fraudulent story they are pushing and simply telling them that you don't believe them.
Teacher. Game. Luigi wins.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean...
yeah, I mean, but this is the last slide. So this so I found this like an hour
story of Luigi.
We came live. Oop.
Sorry.
So Savvy tweeted this. So NYPD says the gun found on Luigi Mangione matches shell casings at crime scene. NYPD also found matching fingerprints on a water bottle. Okay, so this is an ABC News report. So let's play this.
Are now saying that the gun found on Luigi Mangione matches shell casings found at the scene where United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was murdered. The 26-year-old suspect is being held right now in a Pennsylvania jail cell, fighting extradition to New York. Investigators collecting clues for a possible motive, looking at Mangione's writings and fingerprints found on items near the shooting scene in Manhattan. Our Phil Lipoff joins us now with all the latest details. All right, what do we know about the gun, Phil?
Well, we know that the NYPD was able to get it back from Pennsylvania to the crime lab here in New York. And this is a big piece of evidence, Akira. Up until now, the evidence that had been piling up, the video, the items that were found on Mangione in Pennsylvania when he was found at that McDonald's were largely circumstantial up until today. Now they have matched fingerprints on a bottle and a phone found near the crime scene to Mangione's fingerprints. And just within the last half hour or so, we got word from the New York police commissioner that the gun that was taken from Mangione when he was found in that McDonald's has been flown back here to New York and matched to the 3 shell casings that they found at the murder scene.
So we mentioned that Mangione is fighting extradition to New York. What are the next steps in the legal process here?
The next step will be an extradition hearing, and from speaking to legal experts, the bar in an extradition hearing is relatively low. You have to prove that this is the person you're looking for, and you have probable cause to bring him back. Now, I spoke to ABC contributor Brian Buckmeyer, and he said to me, when you have evidence like this, fingerprint evidence, and a gun matching shell casings at a crime scene, with the bar being so low, it appears he will be brought back here to New York. We don't know that yet. Next step is a hearing.
Bad Cookies in the chat said, is this the same water bottle they saw in the video? If so, then he literally had this exact same shit on for 5
days. Yeah.
So
it makes no sense.
Yeah.
Dude.
It makes no sense. And just a random water bottle, like, now you can argue, and I said this to you before we went live, you can argue, like, if they had to tape the scene up and have to check, like, items around. Sure, I could definitely believe that.
Well,
but also
you've been around New York.
Being, like, this is NYPD though.
Yeah,
like NYPD is shit. You're telling me that they actually are able to do their job?
No,
like,
they do their job for a particular group of people. That's the problem. Right.
So
and
this
the rich
is
people want a fucking head on a spike for this. That's what they want.
This is
so
this is what makes me more sus, is because they're able to work this fast, allegedly, over like a high profile case at this, and given again this guy's wealth and privilege. But a regular person, they're not going to look at this fast. They're not even going to look at it at all.
Nope.
So, you know, they still haven't figured out who killed Biggie. Like, and that was like over 30 years ago. You know, but I don't know. I think this just seemed to be more of a like, this just seems, as I said to you, like the piling on the extra almost to their detriment in a sense, because it's almost kind of like there's not been a lot of evidence that we have seen in the public. It's just a lot of hearsay, like, oh, there's this, oh, there's that, there's this, but nothing to me that's is really substantive to really say, number one, if this was really him at all. Number two, if any of this really is connected to him. But then just the holes in the story of just how he got to, I think, like allegedly Atlanta to New York, and then ended up 5 days later, like in just outside Pittsburgh. When you had plenty of time, there's also the case of the money. They're saying like he had $2,000 equivalent in foreign currency. They didn't tell us which currency it was. Like, was it euro? Was it, I don't know, like pounds? Was he trying to flee the country? Like, these are all kind of stuff. It's just kind of like too much. So, but not sure if we're going to talk about this story. We might at some point, but probably not in this way for a while. But we'll continue watching it. But all I will say is this, and I said this several times, but I'll say it again. Like, don't let this guy be the face of the idea of still needing universal healthcare. Like, and I'm sure like mainstream media is going to try and swerve that topic as much as they can. Number one, don't let them. But number two, again, we did this with Bernie. He became the face of Medicare for all. And then when he decided to like be a cuck, people weren't talking about it anymore. Although I will say, like, I didn't expect, I've been saying, why aren't we talking about Medicare for all on the show for a while? I didn't think it was going to be on my bingo card that we'll actually start talking about it again in this way. But that being said, don't let him be the face of the issue that people have been trying to advocate for decades. Like, we're going to forget about Luigi at some point. But the idea of universal healthcare in America is not going to go away, and it shouldn't. So make it about the issue, not about Prison Bay. As some of you, I see some of you horny toads online, like, bursting over this kid. So,
and build better suppressors is what I have to say. But, unrelated. Anyway. Yeah, I mean, and also don't let this manufacturer consent for fucking your freedoms and privacy to be taken away. I'm sure there's a few people who don't like this who are more than willing to let some of those go to protect rich folk. So, keep your head on a swivel. But anyway, yeah, I mean, just craziness. So, you
have to spin the screen. But as we said, we'll probably won't talk about anything worthwhile updating. We will, but this segment is long enough. We probably won't talk about this for a while. But regardless, if you want to support us in what we do here, feel free to scan the QR code that you see at your screen, or go to the link that you see below. If you want to give us a donation, or if you're in the YouTube chat right now, you can type in !donate in order to give. Any little bit helps, and we appreciate that. And like we said, support independent media, especially with this issue, because as we've said, they're going to manufacture consent essentially to make Luigi allegedly the fall guy. So don't let them do that to you. Be very suspect of this, as you should. Like, again, there's a lot of holes in the story that just doesn't make sense. They are probably looking to have a fall guy to patch this up really quickly and move on. But again, this idea is about universal healthcare. This is something that all of us need. And again, I know a lot of you are sharing your horror stories in the chat. Don't make this be about this one guy, right? So please don't forget to like and subscribe, and please share to fight the suppression that we're seeing on YouTube. Make sure you leave a comment, share your horror stories. We love to hear them. No one likes their insurance, healthcare insurance. Or if you don't have insurance, let us know the struggles you might have had with your families or whatever regarding this issue. And help us get to 3K so we're able to kind of continue making this comment and share this truth to more people. And thanks for watching.
Yeah. All right. To the chats.
I'm sure you guys are very active as we expected.
Yep.
On this topic. So
in imperialism 1994, I was 12 over on the Rumbles. And they deny a referral for what you know you need. So F this system to death, says in imperialism. Yep. All in agreed. And agrees that this Luigi thing is a psyop, as did Indy, I saw in the chat.
Like,
meant to distract the sheep. I'm kind of with y'all.
Right.
So, but anything else?
Sure, there's a few. Indy says send me something, so I was just adding that in the slide.
Slides.
But yeah, just schedule. So but yeah, it seems like a lot bad cookies. I hope he doesn't unalive himself in a cell with paper shoestrings. I mean, honestly, I don't think they will allow that to happen, at least right now.
They might.
But you never know.
If they do, the cameras will be off and the guard will be asleep. So, whatever. Indy over on Kick. Yes, Fed Ken Clippin Stooge got the manifesto because of course he did. Clippin Douche, Clippin Stooge.
That even of itself, why was just him?
Yeah, it's because there's
why
reasons.
Did he get that exclusive?
There's some questions with the Intercept and how they get information. So, and I'm not the first to say this.
Is he even involved in the Intercept still?
Yep.
But Ryan Grimm left.
Well, they're both over at whatever their fucking new named thing that's still paid by the same people.
Okay.
Over with breaking points and all that jazz. So, but I question any information that they're given. So, but yeah, trying to see if anything else. So a bunch of people said they had comments deleted, yep. Max RJ, some people read the Lorax and they don't even know what's happening to them until. So
it happens. Yeah.
Indy said that, Jesse read the Lorax on episode 49 of American Tradition. So you can go check that out. I'm sure we've got a clip somewhere. Bad Cookie single payer program is great. Just ask Israel. Oh wait, they get it free.
Nope.
So, over on the Twitch, man, we've been having to explain single payer so many times to people since the 1980s, and to clarify them that it's not socialism for all the anti-socialism scaredy cats. Yep. So, but single payer will never come to pass. Oh God.
I just want to add a little bit more to that because I know you and Indy, especially now with COVID, kind of question even like a single payer system now.
I don't question the system. I question the powers that be trying to implement one. That's what I question.
Right. Here's my take on this. Like, we don't like how our schools are run, which are generally government run. And I'm saying that as a teacher, I have a problem with it.
Yeah.
But my stance is I'd rather have the thing and make the fight from there than have nothing from the bare minimum and
yes and no.
Try to get it on the board.
It depends on how they want to enact the thing. That's the problem. Right. It's like that process you're going to have to be heavily involved in to make sure that we can get anything close to what we can actually work with. And I don't buy that shit, you know, and it might give them too much
I think
overreach.
Key is the idea of people have to be actively and engaged in order to make sure that you get exactly what you want, and not
even
weasel your way.
Even that, we might not have a choice, is my point. You know? Like, if they're willing to let that happen, there's going to be some nonsense involved. So just be prepared for that, you know, if that ever does happen, which I don't think it's going to be a unusual day to decide to let that fight go. So,
I mean, again, the silver lining is it should make the elite right now. Well, we're seeing what we're seeing in mainstream media.
Oh yeah, they're afraid.
They're capping for Thompson right now.
Yeah,
and it's like, you know, so they're afraid because they're aligned with him more. They are aligned with Luigi allegedly is also part of that too, but I'm going with now assuming if he did do it, like he's kind of radicalized himself to be like the Batman in this situation, or the Robin Hood in this situation. So people are not siding with Thompson because, again, this is an issue, and this is even with the thing that I'm hating is that people are talking about what Ben Shapiro is.
Yeah, I don't give a shit.
Bullshit. I'm like, I don't give a shit of what Ben Shapiro says. Like, talk to the regular people who have and we did it tonight, you know. But talk to the regular people, or find out from what regular people have been saying about and the reality.
Even brought his dumb ass up,
right?
You know,
it's I don't give a fuck of what that idiot has to say. Like, he rich.
Yep.
And his wife isn't his wife a doctor?
Allegedly.
So she technically should know better, but whatever, you know. But but don't listen to people like that, you know. Don't waste your breath, you know. But that being said, I'm glad, at least for this, that people are still are kind of having some type of class consciousness over this issue. I just hope it just doesn't become a trend where, again, around this guy, that once things kind of fizzle out, that people are just going to go back to their regular ways. That's what I'm expecting to happen, but we'll see.
All right, let's get to this last one. I don't think it's going to be that much, but there's going to be
might be part of why we're distracted right now.
Yes. So, over this last week, a lot of things been happening in Syria, as well as the last decades. And it's confusing and complicated, and I'm going to try to do my best with the information we have at hand. And we'll be keeping an eye on it for, you know, just because we need to. But Damascus has fallen. Assad has left. I do believe is somewhere in Russia, so we do know that. But we'll start with Jason Ditz over at antiwar.com, friends of the show, who writes, Reuters says Syrian army command says Assad's rule has ended, right? You know, I don't know about celebrations, but the Islamist offensive across Western Syria has accelerated substantially in the past few days, and now Reuters is reporting that the Syrian army command is telling officers that the era of Assad's rule has ended. The apparent regime change is the culmination of just 2 weeks of offensive by the Islamist Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, aka HTS and allies. HTS is run by Abu Muhammad al-Jalani and has had considerable ties to Al-Qaeda and ISIS. They held only a portion of the Idlib province at the beginning, which they had for years, as the Syrian civil war has mostly stalemated. HTS took the major city of Aleppo in just a few days, and the Syrian army promised a counterattack that ultimately never came. The HTS offensive continued southward, seizing Hama, then 48 hours, taking both Homs and Damascus as well. So the current situation leaves the HTS in control of the 4 largest cities in Syria, along with much of the country's southern frontier, with Israel and Jordan. Celebrations have been reported in Damascus, bullshit, but there is also substantial uncertainty over what is going to happen next. Other parts of Syria remain divided, with the Kurdish SDF, backed by the U.S., holding the northeast. The SDF has also seized other towns and villages in recent days, as the Syrian government was unable to defend them. Unable may not be the right word. Not sure about that yet. Further west along the Mediterranean coast, there's no word on who is in control of cities like Tartus. The Russian Navy, however, has reportedly withdrawn from the Tartus point. The HTS hasn't addressed what will happen to the port, but with numerous reports of them receiving arms from the Ukrainian government, it seems likely they will look to expel Russia on a permanent basis. So it's not clear that the HTS offensive is actually over with the fall of Damascus either. Over the past several days, it's been reported that HTS leader Abu Muhammad al-Julani was keen to take over not only Syria, but Lebanon as well, and had offered to allow Israel to open embassies in both Damascus and Beirut after they take them. Turkey has been openly backing the HTS offensive, and Turkish allied rebel factions participating in the fighting. Israel and the U.S. have been a little less outspoken in their support for the al-Qaeda-linked HTS, but both expressed a preference for HTS over the Assad government. We'll get to that. They're definitely happy about it. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan has said the U.S. won't cry about the ouster of Assad and favor the al-Qaeda-aligned faction. Still, it's not clear a Sunni Islamist government with such strong historic ties to al-Qaeda will end up being particularly friendly to Israel in the long run. The U.S. may also quickly find the HTS becoming an enemy once again when the faction decides to attack the SDF. Not so sure about that. HTS hostility to the Kurdish SDF is a long-standing issue and likely a big part of why the Turkish government has been supporting them. So HTS formed in early 2017 as a merger of several Islamist militant groups, centering initially around fighting Jabhat al-Nusra, but ultimately merging with them. Jabhat al-Nusra was effectively the Syrian wing of al-Qaeda, though it rebranded in 2016, claiming to cut ties with al-Qaeda. Despite that, HTS maintains much of the underlying rhetoric. Exactly what the result of this offensive will be is still unclear. Even in the indications are that Assad is out, it seems unlikely that the HTS will be broadly embraced across Syria, and the Syrian civil war may not be complete after over a decade of territory trading hands back and forth. So, any questions so far? Okay. Again, I definitely go look at the reporting from Vanessa Beeley, Eva Bartlett, Kevork Almasian. Any others I'm missing? Morandi, UK Column's been doing incredible work on this, so please go check them out to keep up to date on accurately what's happening there. But things like this, new regime forces in Syria carrying out summary executions, right? Classic back of the head, throw them in the pile of bodies sort of executions. So things are not going well there. I've been seeing quite a bit of horror stories, especially from Syrian Christians who, part of this is religious extremism to some degree. I don't know how much of that is involved, but, also there's a lot of factors that play involved in this entire thing. A lot of people are blaming the Assad government, and that's definitely not the problem. The government that may have been under him might be, but, we'll get to some of that. But, Antiwar.com will tell you that Netanyahu takes credit for Assad's overthrow. Israel seizes the Golan Heights buffer zone. Yay!
Which, if that, people were saying what happened in Syria is a good thing. If Netanyahu is praising it, that should tell you everything right there.
So,
but then again, but to be fair to people, people don't know about.
Yeah, they got no idea what's going on over here.
They have no idea.
No.
So,
and I barely know what's happening, and it's a lot more than most. So,
Right.
Anyway, Netanyahu on Sunday celebrated the overthrow of Assad by al-Qaeda-linked militants and confirmed that Israel has seized a buffer zone inside Syria. Buffer zone. That separates the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights from the rest of Syria's territory. This is a historic day in the history of the Middle East, Netanyahu said during a visit.
For you.
Yes.
For you.
Yeah.
Just a minute. For you.
The Assad regime is a central link in Iran's axis of evil. Called it an axis of evil. Great. You got one to talk there, dog. The regime is fallen. Netanyahu credited Israel with setting off the processes that led to the downfall of Assad. In the months leading up to the offensive launched by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, Israel was waging a war against Hezbollah and ramped up airstrikes in Syria. I do believe, I think it was Vanessa Beeley that said something like a lot of this started right after the supposed ceasefire in Lebanon. They essentially just switched targets, right? I mean, they also didn't stop bombing Lebanon, so hard to tell. But I've heard some of that going around. This is a direct result of the blows we have inflicted on Iran and Hezbollah, the main supporters of the Assad regime, Netanyahu said. This has created a chain reaction through the Middle East of all those who want to be free from this oppressive and tyrannical regime. So this is this alleged buffer zone over here into Syria, right? This got bigger, by the way, after this photo was made. But the Israel leader also said he directed the IDF to capture the buffer zone in Syria. Together with the defense minister and a full backing from the cabinet, I directed the IDF yesterday to take control of the buffer zone and the dominant positions near it. We will not allow any hostile force to establish itself on our border. The buffer zone Israel has seized has been patrolled by a UN peacekeeping force known as UNDOF since 1974. Netanyahu declared that the agreement established the buffer zone, and UNDOF has now collapsed. So, the New York Times later reported that Israeli troops had entered Syrian territory beyond the buffer zone and took control of several locations. Israel also pounded Syria with airstrikes on Sunday, targeting dozens of military and government sites. Israeli officials said the purpose of the attacks was to prevent weapons from ending up in the hands of hostile forces. So a lot of gaslighting happening over here. There are signs that Israel's been planning to make a move on the buffer zone before the Assad government collapsed. The AP reported that Israel began construction along the buffer zone, citing satellite images. After the report, UNDOF warned that Israel was committing severe violations of the deal with Syria that established the buffer zone. So, yeah. Your friend Brett Wilkins over at Common Dreams, U.S. bombs over 75 targets in Syria after Assad falls. So, in case you were wondering what we were up to, U.S. military forces launched dozens of airstrikes on more than 75 Islamic State targets in Syria on Sunday after the fall of longtime Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and amid ongoing Israeli and Turkish attacks on the war-torn Middle Eastern nation. According to CENTCOM, more planes, including B-52 bombers, F-15 fighters, and A-10 ground attack aircraft, conducted dozens of precision airstrikes targeting known ISIS camps and operatives in central Syria. Yeah, okay. ISIS stands for what again, people? What does that stand for again? The Israeli Secret Intelligence Service? Oh, sorry, that's their old name. CENTCOM called the strikes part of the ongoing mission to disrupt, degrade, and defeat ISIS in order to prevent the terrorist group from, I doubt very fucking much that they were trying to fight any ISIS cells in this. That's some bullshit, I'm betting. I'm not going to listen to what CENTCOM is trying to say. The U.S., together with allies and partners in the region, will continue to carry out operations to degrade ISIS operational capabilities even during this dynamic period in Syria. U.S. and coalition forces have killed and maimed at least tens of thousands of Syrians and Iraqis during the Obama, Trump, and Biden admins as part of the anti-ISIS campaign and wider so-called war on terror when we ended up funding them. Funny how that works. But Sunday's U.S. strikes came as al-Assad and relatives fled to Russia. Again, fled may not be the right word here, where they have been granted asylum amid the fall of the capital, Damascus, to rebel forces. Also on Sunday, Israeli forces seized Mortaria in the Golan Heights and ordered residents of 5 villages to stay home and not go out until further notice, so we can kill you there, if they want to remain safe, says Israel. Conquered the western 2/3 of the Golan Heights in 1967 and has unlawfully occupied it ever since. In 1981, Israel illegally annexed the occupied lands, just in case you're wondering. So, this is what was happening on Twitter after this, right? The Syrian Hermon is in our hands. Anyone up for a ski trip? They say. So, fuck you, Zionist piece of shit. Anyway, again, Netanyahu, we won't allow hostile forces nonsense, which doesn't apparently go for anyone on the other side to build defenses. That's then aggression from them. Numerous Israelis celebrated the seizure on social media, while others cautioned against boasting. Meanwhile, in northern Syria, Turkish airstrikes in support of Syrian National Army rebels were battling U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces fighters in and around the Kurdish-controlled city of Manbij, reportedly killed numerous civilians along with dozens of militants. In what is called a horrific massacre, the London-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said Monday that 11 civilians from the same family, including women and 6 children, were killed in a Turkish drone strike on the SDF-controlled village of Al-Mustahira in northern Raqqa government. So Dave DeCamp over at Anti-War, right? U.S. backs Israel's land grab, standard stuff, right? You know, again, several areas beyond the buffer zone. When asked, State Department Matt Miller said it was important to put the situation in context. God, if you put punchable faces in the dictionary, Matt Miller comes up as the first option, but, you know. First of all, the Syrian army abandons its positions. Again, we're going to get to this. Abandoned's not necessarily the right word. So, yeah, I mean, every country has the right to take action against terrorist organizations, Miller said. Does that include Israel? Seeing as how we've called their acts terrorism? No? Miller? Are you sure about that? Miller also insisted the Israeli occupation of the land was temporary. Oh, yeah, okay. The second thing that is important is that Israel has said that these actions are temporary to defend its borders. These are their permanent actions. Bullshit. Also on Monday, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu declared the Golan Heights would be Israel's forever. Funny how that fucking works there, doesn't it? Talking out of both sides of your fucking mouth. Anyway, several Arab countries, including Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar, strongly condemned the Israeli seizure of the Syrians' territory. The Qatari foreign minister said it considered the move a dangerous development and a blatant attack on Syria's sovereignty and unity, as well as a flagrant violation of international law. Qatari may be one of the factors here, from what I've heard, right? They have a vested interest in this land, particularly gas pipeline into Europe is the goal for them, right? So they have tons of oil sitting under their sands, and they could theoretically make it a lot easier for Europe to then get gas for it, right? You know, they've been having trouble with Russian gas here recently, so that would put them in competition with Saudi Arabia as a major power. So
he who controls the spice controls the universe.
You know how it works. So, but yeah, this might be just kind of gaslighting from them. And it might also be like, hey, Israel, that's our land, you know? So we'll see. Saudi Arabia, another factor in this, said the land grab confirmed Israel's continued violation of the rules of international law and its determination to sabotage Syria's chances of restoring its security, stability, and territorial integrity. So, yeah. Any questions so far?
Nope.
So, in other news, Caitlin says the U.S. is considering removing Halat Tahrir al-Sham from its list of designated terrorist organizations. Following the Al-Qaeda's affiliate victory in Syria, I have said it before, and I'll say it again, terrorist organization is a completely arbitrary designation which is used as a tool of Western narrative control to justify war and militarism. In effect, it just means disobedient population who needs bombs dropped on them. Any questions? So, here's the proof, right? This is from the U.S. Embassy in Syria. HTS is a merger, and any group that mergers into it becomes part of Al-Qaeda's Syrian network. We remain committed to bring leading AQS figures in HTS to justice. So, again, they had reward for justice up to $10 million, Care Bear, they wanted for this guy. So you could have gotten a $10 million reward unless you worked at McDonald's. Then they don't give you those rewards. But anyway, the Spectator Index says, breaking. Syria's new government announces it will move away from state-controlled economy to a free market model to attract investment. What do you think that means, Collin?
Capitalism.
So, anyway, yeah, right. Ran by Al-Qaeda? General strike. Let me translate. Syria's national resources and politicians will be for sale to the highest bidder. So, yeah. Anyway, you remember this guy, right? Mr. Muammar Gaddafi had some very similar things he had to deal with, which he writes, Obama wants to kill me, to take away the freedom of our country, to take away our free housing, our free medicine, and our free education, our free food, and replace it with American-style thievery called
capitalism.
But all of us in the third world know what that means. It means corporations run the countries, run the world, and the people suffer. Any questions? No?
No.
Okay. I got it. So, Syrian girl on Twitter, and this is why I was prefacing all those Syrian fled, abandoned, all that stuff, right? So, she says the Syrian army didn't run. They were ordered to stand down. They claim that they didn't want to fight is a lie. They gave 170,000 men to this cause, not to mention the injured. Here, a soldier says, we were ordered to retreat from Hans. We were sold out. The Syrian army in Hama and Homs, he says, I come to assure we have everything under control against the armed groups. They controlled the area, but we were all ordered to give up the land up to HTS. Why? Right? So she continues, the Syrian army did not run. Syrian soldiers say that they were ordered to surrender after some type of agreement. They say they have gathered in the coastal mountains and will continue to fight with our souls and with our blood we give to Syria. So, yeah, there's some shenanigans going on. I don't know of what kind. I don't know what agreements were made within the government itself, but something's up. So, Fee replying, as some of us have said from the start, while some claim to be offered money, the majority were told to stand down and some got in trouble for not following, but many suddenly only want to blame Syria and Assad. Well, that's the new narrative you have to swallow. Deals were made. So, yeah, I don't know. And these are the things that we still aren't sure of yet. So we'll see in the coming days and weeks what things transpire, but you know, don't believe anything the mainstream media or our government is putting out about it. So, good rule of thumb. Anyway, speaking of Vanessa Beeley, who we've had on the show, please go check that out and what she said about Assad and Syria in general. But she gives a quick update. We know she was in Damascus at the time, so she writes more than 350 Israeli airstrikes targeting Syrian territory in the past hours, and an enemy Israeli occupation of Syrian territory equivalent to twice the size of the Gaza Strip, and their army is less than 40 kilometers away from the capital, Damascus. After a rather turbulent 48 hours, Vanessa is safe and will be writing and broadcasting as normal very shortly. She had 1 hour to pack one suitcase and take one dog and get through a border swarming with armed thugs, looting and fighting amongst themselves over the spoils. The night before was sent besieged by armed groups firing in the air to celebrate their victory, while Israel started using bunker buster bombs on Syrian military sites and air defense close to the house. The house shook from top to bottom. At 10 a.m., truckloads of armed thieves arrived and battered at my front gate. I was on the phone to a friend who begged me to find a weapon. Clearly, I don't have any. I yelled at them from inside, and the dogs went crazy. After 3 batterings, they left. Much more to recount over the coming days. Social media is a mess of lies, misinformation, and downright hypocrisy. Thank you to everyone who emailed and messaged. It really lifted my spirits in an all-time low. I wrote this note this morning. I need a long time to process the loss for the whole world and for me as a human being who saw my future living in my beloved Syria. Anyone who can explain why Assad's pre-recorded farewell speech and possible explanation of the catastrophic events was not aired as planned after they left the country, please get in touch. I know her and Kevork differed on this. He had not heard this. She says she got it from reliable sources. So, not sure how that worked out. I think she said she'd wait till the dust had settled, which is a good idea in these situations. Right. But all the backstabbers who are now turning against Assad, protecting their interests, you were in a position to say something for 14 years. Why didn't you? I don't blame any of the ordinary people for adopting the new era. People in Syria are isolated and afraid. Some are terrified. The mainstream media vultures are flooding in to clot the corpse of one of the oldest civilizations in the world. History will be revised, as it always is, by the victor. If only the victor were genuinely Syrian and grassroots, not a terrorist force incubated in CIA black sites and empowered by Israel and the collective Western alliance of callous hegemony. Also, Ukraine is involved in this, if I'm not mistaken, in training some of these people. So, and I think there's some other groups that are doing that. So, Syria will become a toothless melting pot of foreign interests, resource looting, and expanding Zionist land grabs. A nation without any army, without any military infrastructure, is not a nation. It's a playing field for the predators. This is a record of Israeli strikes so far against Syrian military and defense infrastructure. A squadron of 30 Israeli aircraft over Syria strikes military installations and air defense. Israeli Air Force targeted the headquarters of the Electronic Warfare Administration near al-Badalia, adjacent to the city of Sayyida Zainab in Damascus countryside. Israel bombed scientific researchers in Barza in Damascus, the 47th Brigade in Hama, and the helicopter airport in Aqraba. Israeli airstrikes on Yafor area in the countryside of Damascus. Israeli warplanes bombed the ship port in Latkia, according to reports. The attacks targeted military ships anchored in the port. Israel is exploiting the collapse of the state in Syria and destroying all the strategic capabilities of the Syrian army to prevent anyone from benefiting from them in the future to rebuild a strong army. Israeli warplanes have become capable of entering Syrian airspace and using bunker-busting bombs. Israel has destroyed all Syrian air defense bases and military airports and is now intensively targeting ballistic missile warehouses and weapon factories. Collin, when we talked about American war games not too long ago, what was one of the rules they changed for the supposed Middle Eastern side? Do you remember? So it was air defenses mainly, right? Okay. So, you know, you're not allowed to have air defenses, and you're not allowed to communicate encryptedly. That's pretty much one of those things. So, that's clearly a big factor for them, right? Air superiority is a big part of our tactics. Houses in Damascus are shaking due to the intensity of successive Israeli airstrikes. Dozens of Israeli airstrikes are now being carried out in various parts of Syria. Israeli raids on Hamishi, I forget how Q's are done here, but airport in northeastern Syria. Israeli airstrikes on Jabla on the Syrian coast. Israel renewed its airstrikes on Akraba military airport in Damascus countryside in the Shinsar area south of Homs. Israeli airstrikes on Basel al-Assad's military airport in Jabla. So, yeah. I also wanted to let people know, as does Vanessa, that you can consider subscribing to her Substack, which I leave this QR code for you to scan and go find her Substack. Her article's in the description below. Go click it. Go give her a you know, it's like $50 for a year, you know? So send her some love. She's going to send money back to people who are struggling in Syria. So please go help out. You know, I'm sure the people there need it. And, you know, Vanessa also, I probably doesn't know her future. So go help her out in general too. So, any questions, closing thoughts?
I mean, I remember talking with when we interviewed Vanessa, when we were talking about Syria, and we actually have a clip of that specific conversation. Please go watch it. You know, she just mentioned overall her love for Syria and a love for the people there, and me being able to acknowledge that, like in terms of being in that world. I spent time in Morocco and Jordan.
Yeah.
And I think that's the issue. I think that's at the root cause, the issue that people have. They're fearful of Arabs. You know, they kind of think of them as backwards. They kind of think of them as, you know, like second-class citizens, and like they're like somewhat conservative and very, you know, all the things. I went there, and as I told her, which I was able to, you know, confirm, they were probably the most hospitable people that I've ever met, you know? And that's not to say they always agreed, like the people that I met, that they always agreed with my views, but they were willing to talk to me about it. They were willing to gain understanding about my viewpoint of the world. And I think they were able to, and I was able to do the same with them. Like they're extremely open to hear, and like here it's kind of like decorum, and like you don't talk about politics because you don't want to piss people off. They don't believe that. It's the idea of like, we can talk about it, and not necessarily to disagree, but we want to build understanding amongst each other. So they're willing to talk to you, and they're willing to talk to you for hours about it. But the thing that I kind of realized from that is like, that's how they build relationship with you. Like, I remember a specific time that we went to a cafe. I forgot what the discussion was, but we were talking for hours. It was around politics. This was back in 2006. Yeah, I think 2006, 2007, when I was in Morocco and Jordan. When I left Jordan, like before I left Jordan, basically they were like, if you need anything, give us a call. Let us know. We will help you out. Like, that's the kind of hospitality that I experienced when I was in Jordan. And I know Richie Medhurst is also, being that he is Syrian, has also kind of said similar things.
Yep.
You know, so I think at the core of this, it's a matter of not knowing the culture, not knowing the people, and I think a lot of the stigma that Arabs have, and particularly in the media, is just so misconstrued to make them seem like less than, and, you know, backwards in terms of, you know, they need to progress in a more civilized way. Like, the Israeli/white.
Yes.
This in terms of progressivism and I think a lot of that has to do with religion, partially. But
even though their religion is equally as fucking
that's
violent and fanatical.
That's the irony of it. It's like you're calling out Arabs for being violent, but you're justified in the violence that you're doing. And no country,
any of the violence that they've done,
no country is perfect. And again, I don't look to a country in terms of their leaders. I look to a country in terms of the people who are there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's ultimately the problem. People look at their leaders and kind of paint a broad brush pertaining to the people that live in those countries. You wouldn't do that. I know people do it, but you would feel a way if people now, with Trump being in office, you would feel a way if people associated you as an American due to what Trump is going to do or has done. You wouldn't appreciate that. So I don't think we deserve to give people that license to think that way of people who live in other countries, especially in the Arab world either. Yes, they may have issues that, especially regarding religion, that they disagree with. But again, I will argue that's more within the elite circles within those countries and not necessarily with the people who are necessarily living there. But you can make that argument in any country. There's that issue. So, but yeah, just reminded me of where we spoke to her and just saying how lovely. She invited us to go.
Right.
Pretty sure now that's not going to be a thing now for people who want to go now. But I remember she offered an invite to anyone who wants to go and experience. And I think people should do well. That's going to remain to be seen now. But, but Arabs are not backward people. That's, I think, ultimately what I want to say. And it's depressing that we treat them that way. And I think that's just due to a lot of the misconstructions that they have, mostly in media, which I think is very upsetting.
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, it's just, and to all the Zionists out there,
your continued existence is a mockery of morality.
Pretty much. Well, talking about these things is why we're demonetized. You can go to ko-fi.com/indienewsnetwork, scan that QR code on your screen, or if you're in the live chat, put !donate and send us a little dollary deuce. We appreciate it, but we get it. It's tough. Just like and subscribe, hit the share button, leave a comment, let us know what you think. What do you think the next steps here are? But otherwise, thanks for watching. All right, what do we got coming up this week, Care Bear?
You might need to. Oh, it actually did work. Okay, great. No, actually, can you refresh that?
Yeah, here. No. How about I do this?
There we go. That's it. So slight changes. Thanks to Indy for sending this to me earlier. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday mornings.
Yeah.
At 10.
AM Wake Up's going to be simulcast over there.
X.
Yep. Twitter.
Tomorrow night, Himbo will stream. He's also going to stream on Friday afternoon at some point. Not sure when, but check our Twitter, get any news for updates on that. Angel will go live at 7 p.m. on Friday. Oh, and also Friday, Independent Review will be going live at 10 on X.
Yeah.
And then American Tradition replay will be on at 10 o'clock Friday night. Sunday, as usual, How Do We Miss That with Indy and you, followed by Boats after midnight. Since next Tuesday, there will be a live American Tradition. And then next week will be our next episode. We've been talking that will probably be our last episode for the year next week. we're going to go on a 2-week break after next week, just because it's Christmas. I'm going to be traveling. I'm not going to be in the mood to do anything. It will also give Reef and I some time to kind of reflect on the year and kind of make some plans for the upcoming year.
And I might be able to figure some stuff out.
But
keep some tabs on the Twitter.
Stay tuned. No, we're not going anywhere. We're just taking a break, being that it's the holidays, but also give us a chance to talk through some stuff of what we want to kind of accomplish for 2025.
And speaking of Twitter, if you guys are on there and you see at Gendany News tweets, they're heavily suppressed. So feel free to give those some retweets and some likes. Try to help beat that. But anyway, you were saying?
So more than likely, so we're hoping we're able to get an interview in during that break, and then a rewind probably of something regarding like 2024 as far as stories or something like that. We'll let you know, but more than likely we'll have our after next week, which is that's the 12th. So Thursday now. So the 19th. We won't go live again until January 8th in the new year. So yeah, stay tuned, but we'll let you know. We'll have some content for sure, but it won't be live after next week, more than likely. And shout out to Indy. He was on The Homeless Left yesterday. He was on live with Matt Weinglass and Pasta and Thee for a few minutes talking about Luigi situation. So please, you can actually check out that segment on our Twitter. Go to Get Indie News and you can hear what Indy has to say if you want to get an idea of how you feel. It's pretty much what he was saying earlier. So definitely check him out as well. And yeah, that's it, I think.
Yep. I think he was on something else. The New Prisoners. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Go check that out too. Anyway, I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
So cool. There's some merch. You can get it at indienews.shop. Go get you some new stuff. There's some new stuff in there. If you want, you can use code Jesse at checkout. So hook yourself up. But yeah, all right. I think that's our show for this evening. So remember, kids, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
Have a good week, everyone.
We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.